Hey everyone, I'm Popeye. We got some more Umineko for you today. We're playing through Chapter 2. We are maybe at the point where people start dying today. Fingers crossed. But before we get into that, this game has pretty mature themes, so I'm just going to put out some trigger warnings. This game includes themes such as death, murder, dismemberment, disfiguration, torture, child abuse, and any of those above against a minor. If that's not something that you feel up to today, please by all means find another place that you feel comfortable with today. Alright, so last time we did see a lot of child abuse. We saw a lot of Maria and Rosa's background. I guess not background, but in terms of how they got here today. So they were taking a train in. Maria, being her usual self, is easily distracted. Once Candy is talking about witches and Halloween, because we're in October, and because she loves that occult stuff, she loves Halloween, but Halloween's not really a big thing in Japan. I think outside of probably like some parts of Europe and North America, I don't think it's really a big thing in much of the rest of the world. At all. I've only been one other place during Halloween, which was Italy. They had parties. There were people out in costumes. You could tell it was Halloween. But as for, like, people trick-or-treating, I didn't really see much of that. It was just more, like, costume party stuff. Alright, but yeah, so that's what Maria wanted. She wanted to throw a Halloween party, get some, like, pumpkin candy to give to all of her cousins. And Rosa didn't like that she was making a scene like this on the train, and hits her many times, just to, get her to be quiet. Parent of the Year award. They make it to their transfer station, and Maria's still sad, so Rosa's still hitting her there until an attendant comes and kind of breaks her out of it, and she realizes what she's doing in front of everyone. And she then agrees to go take Maria to the store to buy candy, because she had seen some candy earlier, but they were in a rush to make the train. Even though that will for sure make them miss their train, and they'll have to catch a later one, which might make them miss their flight. But we know because the typhoon's coming, they end up making it to the flight anyways. We kind of see a little bit we've seen before with Maria and Battler's initial exchange. Initial exchange for the first time in about 6 years. And I saw that comment. I'll get to it after I finish kind of the summary. We make it to the island. Maria starts talking about witches and Beatrice and Halloween stuff again, and Rosa's not very happy and starts hitting her again, which is why Maria ends up staying outside in the rose garden and everyone else inside, until the storm starts, and then Rosa realizes that Maria's still outside because she told her to stay there and keep muttering about witches for all she cares. And that brings us to where we are now, where Maria's there, and I believe Cannon was the first one to find her, if I remember correctly, and now Beatrice is there as well. Hello, Destroyer, how's it going? Yeah, here's my take on it. I haven't seen enough of Umineko yet to say how well portrayed Maria is. Not that there's like a specific way that people are portrayed if they're in an abusive situation. Without spoiling stuff, there's very similar themes in Higurashi, and they do that very well. I assume everyone here remembers that, but just in case people watching later haven't. They did it very well in a way that I thought showed that this is an issue in society, kind of how societal norms kind of can get in the way and do get in the way of kids getting help. From what I've seen here so far, I think they made their point very clear that Rosa is abusive towards Maria, and then kept taking it further and further without any like more payoff. I think they could have done it in a like a way that didn't showcase just so much violence towards a child. I think you made your point a long time ago, and just kept going. That's my take on it so far. But this is only game 2, so we'll see after that. But yeah, Beatrice just showed up. Let's see who else is here. All right, Rosa comes out and wants Maria to come inside, but Maria says no because Beatrice promised that she'll be here soon, so I'm gonna wait for her. And here she is. In her different costume, by the way. If I think I pointed this out last time, but if you didn't notice, she is in a different costume. I wouldn't be surprised, from what I remember, and this was something I read from, it wasn't directly from Ryushiki, but it was someone else saying that they knew this about Ryushiki, is that apparently they had initially worked for the government, so it's very possible they had worked in Child Protective Services. And basically they wanted to write a story that showcased the failings of the government, which we can see around, Child Protective Services, the whole part of Higurashi about the dam project and, how the government kind of tried to force people out of their homes. There's a lot of pieces there that they did try to showcase of like, hey, government's not perfect. Here are things that the government has done and is continuing to do that are not perfect. And I think they did showcase that very well. I've never lived through, one, I haven't lived through abuse, and 2, I haven't lived through the government trying to force me out of my home. So I can't say to how well portrayed that was, and I'm also not in Japan. Would have been very different. And also, depending on when that was in Japan, if that's 80s, 90s, also probably very different. I did used to work with kids, so I did have to go through courses on, identifying child abuse. Unfortunately, it's something that if you work with the kids, you kind of you have to know the signs, because kids don't necessarily know they're being abused, and 2, even if they are, they're oftentimes too powerless, too scared. There's so many things going on that it's usually not a situation that they can get out of. And short answer is, basically, if you see it, you need to report it. And what we were told is, whatever information you can get out of that kid, if they come to you with hey, I've got a secret, do you promise not to tell anyone? What I was told to do, and I'm not sure if this is the same now, because this was 15 or so years ago, you were told to lie to that child, get as much information out of them as possible, and then report it to CPS, the police, whoever it is. It doesn't care if the kid hates you at the end of the day, as long as they end up being safe. That was kind of the mindset of it. So, and thankfully I never witnessed anything like that. I was never in one of those situations where I saw a kid going through an abusive situation and had to report it. But it's one of those things that you go through the training and you're just wow, this is a horrible thing, and this is a horrible world we live in at times. Well, sorry for bringing the stream down when we've just started. We're going to see if Beatrice can make us all feel better, but I kind of doubt that. Maria dashed over to the figure. Normally, Rosa would scold her daughter if she dashed over to a complete stranger. But Rosa forgot about that, unable to do anything but stand there shocked. Rosa can see Beatrice, it seems. This is new information. I was waiting for it to look like Maria was talking to no one and Rosa to get mad.
魔女は呪いにて風邪をひかせはするが、自らが引いてはなんとも間抜けな話よ。
This means I haven't been cursed by a witch anytime recently.
せいぜい自らが風邪をひくことなどないよ。これからも精進するがいい。
She patted Maria's head as she said this, smiling roguishly. Rosa couldn't have known the name of the woman who was happily spoiling Maria. However, Maria had called her in the beginning when she'd appeared. Therefore, even though Rosa had never met her, and even though she hadn't named herself, Rosa was able to learn her name. However, that name held a special meaning in Rokkenjima in the Ushiromiya family. Also, hold on a second. Let's assume that this is playing it the exact same way as it did in Game 1, which maybe it's not. But so far the events are pretty similar, that Maria was outside during the storm and Rosa comes out to find her. Although I think in that one, I think the kids find her first, so it's slightly different. But if this part's the same, that means Rosa last time literally witnessed Beatrice and was still like, whatever, doesn't exist, fine. There's no way something so stupid could.
Happy Halloween! ほら、買ったの。ベアトにもあげる。
ハッピーハロウィン。ほう、これをわらわにとは。天国にも地獄にも行けず、
And
煉
next
獄
question,
の
is
闇にて
this
さまよう男の
Kinzo's
唯
ring?
一の明かりも、こ
It
うして
appears to be
歌手
on
とな
her
れば
left
実
hand
に可愛
middle
らしいこと
finger.
よ。人の世とも人ならざる者との世とも切り離された今のこの島で、これほどふさわしい歌詞はないかもしれぬな。
Kinzo threw his ring about the time that the storm started, because he threw it at the same time the thunder clapped. So I think this is probably before, but not by much.
マリア、それはどうしたのか。
The witch noticed the sweet that Maria was grasping. It was Maria's candy, which had been stomped on by Rosa and taken on a pitiful shape.
おお、踏んづけて潰れちゃった。ベアトは元に戻せる？
She's calling her by a nickname already. Clearly they've met before, a previous year or previous time, but she's pretty friendly with Beatrice. Maria deliberately didn't say that it was her mother who had stepped on it. However, when the witch saw the candy, for some reason she looked at Rosa and grinned. A chill went down Rosa's spine, as though she felt that this gaze could see through every part of her.
たやすいことよ。貸すがよい。
Maria held up the candy gleefully. Rosa could do nothing but watch this unfold, stunned. How could this person gloss over the fact that the candy was pitifully trampled in a way that could satisfy Maria? Maria looked as though she believed that it could be fixed as good as new. There's no way that could be done without real magic.
これは見事に潰れているな。さあさあマリア、目を閉じて思い出してごらんなさい。本当はあんなにも素敵なお菓子だったから、思い出の中のお菓子はいつもふっくら。だからあなたも思い出してごらんなさい。本当はどんなお菓子だったのか。
Along with those strange words, spoken as though singing an improvised folk song, the witch threw the sweet into the air. Maria had her eyes closed, just as the witch had told her, and was focused on remembering the shape that the crushed candy had really been. Therefore, only Rosa saw that scene. The sweet which had been thrown into the air burst into a gold color. No, those were golden butterflies. It scattered into several golden butterflies, and they began to assemble in the witch's hand, held up to the sky. And when they had, unbelievably, the candy had returned to its original, beautiful form, just like the time it had been bought. Only Rosa and the witch had watched that scene. Unable to understand the event that was occurring right in front of her eyes, Rosa stood with her mouth open, forgetting to shut it.
もう目を開けてよいぞ。受け取るがよい。これでそなたの歌詞も元通りだ。
ベアトリーチェはいつもすごいすごい。
There was a very bold contrast between Rosa's shocked appearance and Maria's innocent, joyful one. But was that what the witch was laughing at? A smile floated to Beatrice's face, different from the one she'd shown Maria.
わらわの顔が。何そうまじまじと見られては穴も開こうぞ。ごめんなさい。
At those words, it hit Rosa strongly. Rosa knew her face. He knew it from the portrait of the witch. But no, wait, was this mystery woman really?
マリア、この歌詞の代わりに、そなたにはこれを与えよう。
おー、手紙？
Okay, here's the letter. Which so yes, Kinzo must have thrown the ring already because it's sealed with his ring. So probably the moment that Rosa saw the storm getting worse and ran outside was probably the exact moment that Kinzo yeeted his ring out. And maybe having that ring imparts more power to Beatrice, and that's how she can make herself more visible. Because before she was saying that it was hard without her power to do so. However, when Maria made to open it, the witch stopped her.
ならぬ。それを開けるときはすぐに訪れるが、それまで決して開けてはならぬ。大事に持っているがよい。そなたを黄金鏡へいざなう招待状となろう。
黄金鏡、やっと連れてってくれるんだね。
大事にしまっておくのだぞ。誰にも見せてはならぬ。
Also, the fact that Rosa, after Beatrice leaves her, doesn't immediately go to Maria and steal that envelope, rip it out of her hands, out of her bag, whatever, and open it up. That's what I would do. Although, maybe I wouldn't want to be cursed. She probably hadn't imagined that the witch would speak to her, too. Rosa was bewildered by this second Western envelope which had been thrust before her. A second envelope? She remembered having seen that Western envelope before. There could be no mistake. It was Kinzo's special envelope, used when he wrote with his own hand and bearing the Ushiromiya crest. Yeah, I don't remember a second envelope. I think the first time I remember a second envelope was shoved under the door of the second murders. Moreover, it was sealed with red sealing wax, and further still it had an imprint which seemed to have been made by the head's ring. Alternatively, Rosa could have had this and kept it secret the whole time. In other words, irrespective of what was written inside, this woman, who Maria called Beatrice, was trusted enough that she was in charge of a personal letter from the current Ushiromiya head.
4兄弟の誰でもよかった。だが、ここでそなたと出会ったということは、金蔵のルーレットがそなたを選んだということなのだろう。
Okay, this is also good information. Any of the 4 siblings. So any of Kraus, Eva, Rudolph, and Rosa. So that doesn't necessarily mean that last time it was Rosa, but last time someone received a letter. However, Rudolph and Kraus both died immediately that night. I don't remember us looking through their pockets. Because I think the doctor was like, keep away, and same with Genji, keep away, we'll let the police handle it. I don't remember Eva having it when they find her dead in the bedroom. But we'll see. We might get some more information.
ならば受け取るが、そしてその中身を全兄弟の揃う晩餐の席上で読み上げよ。
So this time Rosa has to speak it out at the dinner table. So that means Maria's is different. Rose looked back and forth several times between the witch's face and the envelope she had been handed. Today was the family conference, and the biggest object of discussion was the inheritance problem. Also, there was a letter when they make it back to Kinzo's office near the end. So there was a few letters, but I don't recall any one this early. And yes, it is possible that the letter did exist, we just weren't aware of it. For example, it was in Krause's pocket when he was murdered, or when he was murdered, someone took it. They had planned to force certain conditions upon Krause to try to extort a prompt payment of several $100 million out of him. This would be equivalent to several million US dollars today. So, I don't know the exchange rate from yen to US dollars back then, but today it's rough math is divide by 100. Yeah, so on the first night, the kids go back to their respective rooms. Kinzo's locked up or possibly already missing at that point in time. Beatrice is doing whatever witches do. The doctor's in bed. Goda is the night servant, so he's with the adults. And then the other servants, I think Genji's on break. Kumasawa, I think, is lollygagging somewhere. And Canon and Shannon, I think, are with the kids in the guest house. But, what was it? Krause, Rudolph, Rosa, Kyrie. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's just those 5. And Shannon seems to be caught elsewhere. But they were having a late night meeting. Eva and Hideyoshi claim that they went to bed about midnight. And then the others are all killed, and Shannon and Goda as well. Those 6. It's as if the witch could see through all that. When all the siblings are gathered, what is she planning on announcing to us? With a personal envelope that no one but the Ushiromiya head can use.
天気が崩れるぞ。ゲストハウスへ戻り、昼を待つがよい。それではローザ、後ほど会おう。
So I assume this is the ring.
その席で改めて名乗らせてもらおうぞ。
Which turned her back to her laughing, headed off towards the mansion with an air of composure. Maria saw her off with an energetic reply and then dashed off towards the guest house, leaving Rosa where she was. As though she didn't want to waste a second in informing the other cousins of her good fortune in meeting the witch. Ultimately, Rosa was left alone in the rose garden as the winds grew stronger, unable to do anything except pray that what had happened was just a daydream. When the witch entered the entrance hall, Genji was there. With a respectful bow, Genji welcomed the guest who approached from the entrance hall. Now remember when the servants were talking that tomorrow we will have a truly special guest. And they were talking also to Kinzo, and they're like, "Oh, the family's here," and I can't remember who it was. It was someone was like, "Oh, Battler's here. It's the first time he's been here in 6 years," and they're talking like, "Oh, like he's a special guest. He's returning." The servants knew. The servants knew who was coming.
久しぶりだな、源氏。老いたではないか。
どれほどに老いようとも、家具は家具らしく。
And the fact that she's talking to Genji like this means it's been a long, long time since, at the very least, since Genji's physically met her.
晴れの
I
妻
assume she's been able to
お
see
前に
him.
嫉妬したことも懐かしい。金蔵は元気か？
大変お元気にございます。
ふん。
The witch's laugh was probably because she knew that Kinzo's own doctor told him that he would not live much longer. However, if anyone actually looked at Kinzo, his energy and vigor made it extremely difficult to imagine that his remaining life really was slim. It might make it natural to call him full of life. Maybe the witch had laughed at that.
挨拶に行こうではないか。30年ぶりに。互いに呪いの言葉を吐き合うもよかろう。
As the witch grinned, she started walking, leaving Genji behind. Her gait was like that of a family member who knew the inside of the mansion well. Genji followed her as though he served her. At that very moment, Kyrie came out of the parlor. He'd probably come out to fix her makeup or something. When she saw Genji following the witch, she was surprised, although her expression did not change. There was a visitor for Kinzo, whose remaining life was not long, on the day of the family conference, when the fate of the inheritance was to be decided. Furthermore, this person was well enough acquainted with the Ushiromiya family that Genji was following behind her. Kyrie immediately realized that this person, who she had never met before, was someone deeply important. Kyrie met eyes with the witch. Realizing that it would be rude to pretend not to notice, she greeted the witch.
はじめまして。ルドルフの5歳だったか。
さようでございます。ルドルフ様の今の奥方様であられます。
We're learning that a lot of people actually met Beatrice, assuming that this is the same plot. In this exchange, Kyrie realized that this woman was a guest of considerably high rank within the Ushiromiya family. And the fact that she was a guest of that level, coupled with the face of the entrance hall portrait behind her, made Kyrie's eyes open wide in an instant. Did she just magically change the portrait? That would be kind of funny.
はじめまして。キリエと申します。初対面でしょうか。もし以前に挨拶をしていたなら、名前を忘れてしまって申し訳ございません。うすうすは想像がついているくせに、わらわにあえて名乗らそうというのか。
Kyrie had thought she'd given her a sociable and humble greeting. Her expressions were slightly cloudy at that openly oppressive response. It didn't seem like this was a person she could grow to like. But if Kyrie's imagination was correct, this witch likely held a huge key to what her own husband was most interested in, and one that stood a great chance of influencing tonight's family conference. Though she did not shoot back or retort, and could only watch in silence as the woman went up the stairs to the second floor, with Genji following behind. So when someone tapped her shoulder from behind, she was so surprised she almost choked. It was Natsuhi.
キリエさん、このようなところに立ち尽くしていかがなさいましたか。ごめんなさい。ちょっと魔女の肖像画に見とれていただけです。黄金の魔女、ベアトリーチェですか。
You're not sure? You live here.
今日の後ろ宮家の復興は、彼女が授けた黄金がなければ成し遂げられなかったとか。お父様らしい幻想的なお話ですね。
Natsui spoke of her in her usual way. She spoke from the position that the idea of a witch was just foolish, that in the end it was nothing more than Kinzo's ramblings. However, for some reason that no longer felt right to Kyrie. Just now, she herself had seen the Golden Witch come in from the entrance hall and climb up the stairs. So Natsui's choice of words seemed almost like a refusal to accept her existence, or as if she was leading her to think that she did not exist.
ごめんなさい。少し頭痛がする気がして、ちょっと休もうと思います。あら、そうですか？なら、良い頭痛薬がありますよ。用意させましょう。
The hallway in front of Kinzo's study was filled with the scent of sweet poison, particular to that green liquor. Genji, who was completely used to it, did not grimace, and the Golden Witch didn't grimace either.
この中からどれほど出ぬのか。
すでに数年になるかと思います。
それほどまでにわらわを籠の鳥としたいか。哀れな。それを願うそなたが今や籠の鳥、書斎の亡霊ではないか。それに気づけぬとは哀れな男よ。
あなた様と再びお会いする日までは、おそらく文字通り亡霊となっても研究を続けられるでしょう。
愛か狂気か妄執か。それも講じれば魔力となるか。悲しき魔術師よ。
The witch grasped the doorknob to the study. But remember the scorpion. There was the sound of that like flesh burning and splitting open. There was the sound of the doorknob literally burning the witch's hand.
ベアトリーチェ様。
なんだこれは。魔除けか。あやつめ、こんなものに頼らなければ、おのがみも保てぬというのか。
Okay, so the question of, does the ward work appears to be yes.
その扉は、ベアトリーチェ様にはおつらいものと伺っております。私がお開けいたしましょうか。
いや、よい。あやつが勝てば、わらわは永遠の籠の鳥。
But it doesn't seem like it can stop her. Harm her, yes.
あやつが負ければ、
Stop her, no.
愛に狂い、すべてを失った哀れな魔術師の生涯が、笑い草となって残るだけ。もはや金蔵もわらわさえも、ゲーム盤に並べられた駒に過ぎぬ。あとは、ルーレットの目が勝敗を分けるだけよ。ルーレットが目を見せるまで、わらわと金蔵が再会する必要はない。
Which looked at her hand, which, although horribly burned, was beginning to heal bit by
あ
bit.
るいは、そのための魔除けなのか。なるほど。それもまた潔し。すべては今や、金蔵のゲーム盤の上よ。気に入ったぞ、金蔵。そなたとのゲーム、楽しませてもらうぞ。わらわに恋焦がれ、すべての生涯を投げ出したローマ術師の最後のギャンブル。
Okay, so she's not going in. So maybe the ward does fully stop her from being able to go in.
誰か。失礼いたします。昼食をお持ちいたしました。入れ。失礼いたします。
They gave Beatrice a room. After receiving approval, Cannon entered the VIP room, pushing the lunch serving cart. Servants called this room the Witch's VIP room. That was because they had been strictly ordered by Kinzo to always keep it clean so that it could be used at any time. And yet guests were never allowed into this room, no matter who they were. That's why at some point the servants had started calling it the Witch's VIP room. So let's go back. So, we're maybe at lunch on the first day. The people who have met Beatrice so far: Eva, Kyrie, Maria, Genji, Canon. That's like half the people here, before lunch on the first day, have physically met Beatrice. Also, her outfit has changed. And you can see she has the crest now on her leg. Opposite of Canon, actually. Supposed to be set aside only to welcome the special person Kinzo was waiting for, the witch from that portrait. And today, Canon learned that this was entirely correct. When he entered the room, the witch with golden hair was gazing out the window. Outside, the rain had already started to gather strength. As she looked out the beautiful rose garden, which had taken several days' work to make it ready for today, and saw the winds and rain ravage it, she was lost in some sentimental feelings. Canon was not able to infer anything more from her back that faced him.
お食事の用意をさせていただきます、ベアトリーチェ様。
So Canon went out of his way to call the witch's name because he wanted to make her turn around. He wanted to know. He wanted to know whether the witch who had tempted him and Shannon in the past really had appeared again. Oh yeah, and Shannon had met the witch as well, just a few months prior. When he did, the witch whose name had been called kept her back to him and laughed in a subdued voice. Canon was startled. It was almost as though she had read his mind and knew that he had called it to her out of a desire to make her turn around.
良い匂いだな。どうやらクラウスは良い料理人を入れたと見える。
はい、近年入ったゴーダという料理人です。
料理の腕が良きことは何にも勝るものよ。美食は人の世で生きる快楽の山中をなす。千年を飽きぬにはこれを欠かさぬが秘訣よ。
Canon and the witch's eyes met. She grinned. There could be no doubt, not even the slightest. She was without a doubt the witch from that day, Beatrice. The witch that was only visible to him and Shannon now finally held a forum and had arrived openly to the entrance hall as a guest.
ベアトリーチェ様。
久しぶりよの。家具のカノン。
お久しぶりでございます。
Canon tried not to forget a modicum of courtesy towards the guest. But dark clouds had begun to enshroud his heart because of the visit of the suspicious witch, on the day of the family conference at that.
何をしに現れたのかと気が気でならぬと見える。そうであろう。
Canon didn't force himself to answer. The witch probably reads minds. It would be pointless to go to all the trouble of saying it out loud. Of course, even that rebellious spirit of his would be read. So the witch snickered at Canon's childish resistance.
金蔵との最後の約束を果たしに来た。
親方様殿、最後。
わらわは金蔵に山をなす黄金を貸し付けた。それを金蔵が放棄するとき、わらわは利子をつけて返却を受けることになっておる。今宵それをもらい受けに来た。
僕には何の話かわかりません。
However, anxiety began to gather in his heart. This witch never had anything good to say.
違いない。魔女の話にろくなものはないぞ。そなたは正しい。されど魔女とハサミは使いようだ。ソロモン王のように偉業を成し遂げる者も時にはおる。最も多くの場合は童話が語るようにろくな目に遭わんがな。しかし金蔵も食えぬ。わらわの利子の取り立てすらも自らの儀式に取り込みおった。 わらわをも超えるとてつもない大魔術師か。さもなければ狂気に取りつかれたただの知れ者か。面白い。実に面白い。
Ken couldn't guess what the witch was muttering and laughing about. All he knew was that anything that the witch deemed worthy of laughter must have the exact opposite meaning to the rest of them. And rising to the back of his mind are the horrifying words that the witch had spat at him in the past. Do you think that I would lend them that power without any compensation? I'll lend a hand in love, and my compensation shall be one ticket to watch the cruel fate that the two of them will eventually meet. Even after 1,000 years, no better show exists. That's a great transition. They had her face lined up pixel to like pixel on that.
まさかお前は。
懐かしき故郷を貫く鮎の川、黄金鏡を目指す者よ、これを下りて
She's
鍵
literally
を探
quoting
す。
the epitaph. Actually, do we have the epitaph? Can I pull that up? Yeah, so that's the start of it, the first stanza. Which suddenly began to recite a bizarre poem. It was something he remembered hearing.
それはまさか魔女の碑文。
There was no doubt. It was the epitaph accompanying the portrait of the witch that had been hung by Kenzo. Relatives imagined that it almost certainly pointed to the location of the hidden gold, but no one knew what it meant. The witch had suddenly begun reciting that epitaph.
カノン、家具である貴様なら金蔵から聞いていよう。すべてを黄金鏡へ返
Is
す
the
日が
gold
や
in
っ
the
てき
golden
たのだ。
land?
喜ぶがいい。お前の恥辱にまみれた家具の日々がようやく終わる時がやってきたのだ。お前はそれをずっと望んできたはず。自らに存在価値を持たぬ家具にとってただ存在するだけの日々は苦痛に他ならない。魂ある者にとってうつしおは固執すべきものだが、亡き者にとってうつしおは苦害でしかないからのう。
Complicated expressions flitted across Ken's face. It was the day of release that he had been looking forward to. However, the coming of this day had been mercilessly sudden, and the hateful tone of the witch, who had proclaimed this day of rest, made it somehow difficult to accept. Ken wasn't even able to decide what emotion he should feel.
なぜに喜ばぬ？それともうつしおに何かの未練があるというのか？家具の分際で。
未練などない。僕は家具だから。
貴様は実に模範的な家具だな。よいよい。しかし何の未練もないとはつくづく面白みのない。
未練こそがお前の快楽だというのか。
その通り。1000年も生きると大抵の魔女は生き飽きる。 わらわは退屈から逃れるために人間たちの運命にブランデーや果実を練り込み、ケーキのように焼き上げるのだ。オーブンの中で苛烈な運命に踊る人間たちのなんと面白きこと。わらわはこの方面にかけてはちと知られていてな。わらわの料理の腕を見に、時には遠方から珍客が見物に来ることすらあるくらいよ。言っても家具ごときには理解できぬか。
Ken wasn't able to understand what the witch was saying. However, he realized well enough that this was a terrifying being who treated the fates of humans as a show, and was getting enjoyment out of doing them some kind of harm. However, furniture had no soul or life, much less a fate. Pitiful furniture did nothing but serve until the day it would be released from the world. Furniture like that, the witch who had come to release them from everything was also being overflowing with mercy. Even though the day that Canon had been waiting impatiently for had come, he was unable to readily accept it, and this greatly bewildered him. Why was that? The face of Shannon, the person he loved as a sister, rose to his mind. For some reason, Jessica's face did too. Ken bit his lower lip painfully. Thinking of Jessica was not permitted for furniture. He'd been aware of that, and had found fault with Shannon's relationship. So how could he remember Jessica at a time like this? He felt a little ashamed by how weak he was. Forget about Jessica, he turned his thoughts to Shannon. Shannon is also furniture. On the day everything returns to nothing, there was no reason she shouldn't be happy. But Shannon, through her relationship with George, had come to know an emotion that shouldn't be known by furniture. What emotions should furniture know? Even though she wasn't qualified to be bound with him, she was still wallowing in a dream that she wasn't permitted to have. Could Shannon accept something like this now with open arms? Impossible. Shannon would have lingering regrets. That would probably become a great source of pain and torture for Shannon. And those regrets have been planted by none other than this witch. Why? Just because that would be more interesting?
シャノンは待ちわびていたはずの日に知ってはならない感情をとても辛い思いを強いられるだろう。僕たち家具を解放する日を手土産に訪れてくれたあなたに感謝する。
So Canon essentially knows that they're going to die.
そしてシャノンにその日を受け入れがたくしたお前を憎む。
お前もシャノン同様に未練に苦しませてやりたかった。
So essentially all the servants who are aware of Beatrice, which I assume is all of them, essentially know that they're going to die
しかし
today.
お前は愚直に家具であり続け、わらわに籠絡されることもなかった。しかしシャノンを慕いすぎたようだな。シャノンの未練がそなたの未練となる。それはわらわへの憎悪へと変わるのか。わらわを殺したくば殺してみるがよい。金蔵の家具ならばその程度の力は持っていよう。しかしわらわを殺せば家具どもに安息の日は永遠に訪れぬぞ。そなたにそれが耐えられるのか。わらわによる解放を本当に拒むことができるのか。ひざまずけ。
何を。
ひざまずき、わらわの靴に口づ
We've
けを
reached
す
the
るがよい。
Beatrice OnlyFans portion of the stream.
さもなくばわらわはこの場を立ち去ろうぞ。帰りて永遠に姿を現さぬ。のうカノン、そなたはそれに耐えられるのか。黄金鏡の扉が開かれればそなたの苦難に満ちた家具の生は終わろう。望むならば人間としての生を与えてもよい。 さすればもはやジェシカとは対等。
The problem with this is Beatrice has already openly said, nothing I give you comes without equivalent exchange, essentially. So, it seems like if Canon does anything here, Beatrice has some kind of hook in him to be used at a later point in time. Whether that's the relationship with Jessica, the relationship with Shannon.
貴様も知りたいはずだ。恋の味が。隠そうとも知っておるぞ。
Note the ring is now missing from her finger. I'm not sure if that's a design error or if that's a solid a choice that was made here. The ring is now gone.
甘き恋の沼にて溺れるシャノンを見て、そなたは羨ましがっている。恋の味を知りたくてうずうずしておるのよ。
And now the ring is back.
やめろ。
Maybe just that piece of art doesn't have the ring, and that was overlooked.
僕を再び籠絡するつもりか。僕はお前を楽しませるためのおもちゃになり果てたりしない。
ほう、ならばシャノンで満足するとしよう。まいた種はそなただけではないのでな。時には実を結ばぬ果実もある。鍵を手にせし者は以下に従いて黄金鏡へ旅立つべし。第一の番に鍵の選びし6人を生贄に捧げよ。
I think this is now just back to the epitaph. Yeah, she skipped stanza 2, I think, and went to stanza 3 and the start of stanza 4. Right? She didn't talk about the village. Yeah.
第二の番に残されし者は寄り添う二人を引き裂け。
I am worried on this stanza. I think I have a vague recollection of this episode. But this one here, those who shall remain shall tear apart the two who are close. So last time, the two who were close were Eva and Hideyoshi. What if this time it's Shannon and George on night 2? Which recited the epitaph again. It was so sudden and diverged so strongly from the current topic. However, her challenging smile made it seem almost as though she were using that epitaph as a threat to Canon.
わからぬか。この碑文の儀式を成し遂げるには、第二の番に寄り添う二人を生贄に捧げねばならぬ。寄り添う二人は誰でもよい。
Any two who are close. So, in theory, this, in future arcs, could indicate things such as, did Canon agree with Beatrice to be with Jessica? If Jessica and Canon are killed, it could indicate something like that, or just some kind of secret affair.
夫婦でもよいし、恋人同士でもよい。誰を選ぶかは、儀式のルールにのっとり、わらわが気まぐれに決めてよいことになっている。今のシャノンなら、これほどふさわしい第二の番の生贄もないとは思わぬか？
Presumably it's the key to the gold. But is this a physical key? Is it some kind of treasure map or spell or incantation? I don't think we know. Okay, let's look at this. So if we're projecting second night is Shannon and George. Presumably, she wants Canon to be alive to witness that, to amplify his emotions and therefore amplify Beatrice's enjoyment. Battler needs to stay alive to be the the main character who's witnessing everything and to have to fight with Beatrice. And Maria is a good girl who is friends with the witch who probably won't die. So that means first night, who's likely to die? And all the servants seem to do a pretty... I mean, maybe Goathug goes again. Kumasawa could. Genji could. So any of the servants besides Shannon and Cannon. The doctor is whatever. He doesn't seem to have a major, really, part to play. The fact that Rosa saw all this, same with Kyrie, makes me think that they're going to stay just to witness what happens. So let's predict. First night, maybe Kraus, Eva, Rudolph. 1, 2, 3, 4. Natsuhi stays, I guess. Goda and Kumasawa, maybe? Potentially. I mean, if I'm just looking at this, if I was in Beatrice's shoes, my goal here is to enjoy the pain of others as much as possible. I would want Cannon alive to witness Shannon's death. That would be the most enjoyable thing for me as Beatrice. So looking at that, I'm like, okay, who in this current arc do I not really care about? Kraus we haven't really seen too much. Hideo, actually maybe we keep Eva alive, because Eva and Shannon have that interesting dynamic where Eva basically told Shannon to know her place. I think that's part of the fun, well, I guess first of all, Beatrice has said that some people just can't see her because they lack magical power, such as Battler. And thank you for the happy affiliate anniversary message. So I actually don't know if Beatrice could physically show herself to everyone with the power she has right now. Okay. Let's assume Kinzo is also not available to be struck down because he's opposing Beatrice for now. So let's say Kraus, Hideyoshi, Rudolph, Goda, Kumasawa, maybe Nanjo as 6. I'm leaving the kids, and then round 2 would be George and Shannon. That's my prediction so far. I won't waste too much more time on that. Yes, this is affiliate anniversary 5. Quick name George and Shannon's ship name. Broken George ship. I'm not any better at that than anyone else. I'm sure there's someone out there who's good at those. Cannon learned then. He thought he'd given up everything and lived until today as furniture, like furniture should. But in reality, that wasn't true. He had loved Shannon too dearly. I had thought of just going with George and Shannon, but then I was like, that's too easy. But then obviously you're not supposed to spend time thinking about it, so... So then I just went with the first thing that came into my mind. And Shannon's not even a part of that ship, because apparently it's all George. George has all the power in that ship name. So when Shannon was in pain, Cannon shared in that. Only Shannon had continued to exist as furniture, living indifferently like Cannon. Without any attachments to this world, they wouldn't have had to be in so much pain. The witch planned to toy with Shannon, who had learned the taste of love. No, who she had taught the taste of love. as she killed her. She would not invite her to the Golden Land as a merciful release, but would make her sacrifice for that evil ritual after dealing her the limits of torture and pain. And this witch would probably actually make Shannon meet this horrible fate, for no other reason than it would be interesting for her. Furthermore, she was threatening to do that so that she can make Cannon, who hadn't submitted to the witch even once until now, finally surrender. It was that simple. In the end, though he had tried resisting the witch to avoid pleasing her, he'd only made things interesting for her. After all, it was furniture. No, a toy. They were nothing but toys, meant only to distract her from her boredom. Yeah, I think it's just this character model they forgot to add the ring in. Because it was the same when it was on the black background, so I think it's literally just this character model.
ひざまずけばシャノンを生贄に選ぶことを控えんこともないぞ。お前のような玩具を一度
Hear my dog
屈
panting.
服
We
さ
should
せて
go
み
quickly
た
check
か
on
っ
him.
た。
He's good. He was just laying down in the bedroom. Without even a fragment of elegance, the witch sneered at Cannon with a vulgar laugh. Yes, even before Cannon had made up his mind, she'd seen through his surrender. Cannon got down on one knee and chose to genuflect before the witch. He didn't care what happened to himself, however, just the fact that Shannon, who during his days as furniture had given him his only reason to live, was being toyed with. That alone was something that he could not overlook. Therefore, something like kissing the shoes of the witch was an easy oath for Cannon to make. At the time that his quivering lips actually touched the witch's shoe, Beatrice, after allowing a look of ecstasy to ride to her face, let an ear-splitting laugh. In that moment, the witch, who had tired of 1,000 years of life, was completely filled with the evil emotion that was her only raison d'etre. Is no one else just like hearing this creepy witch laugh from upstairs? I guess some people can't see her or hear her, like Kinzo. Lunch had ended and the relatives had moved to the parlor. Rosa had bought a high-class brand of black tea from a famous store in Ginza. Hello, Aoden. Yeah, thank you for the affiliate anniversary. This is 5th anniversary. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years. That had been served, and the inside of the parlor was filled with a very nice aroma. Since the children were together with the adults were, at least on the surface, interacting like relatives, talking peacefully about recent events and how their children were growing up. It started raining outside, so the children were unable to go out, and had no choice but to sit here like this watching TV. Like a true TV kid, which I guess is pre-iPad kids. Marie was watching vapid daytime programs one after another without getting bored, and was giggling all to herself. It seemed that Battler had joined in at first, deepening his relationship with Maria. But he had gotten up early that morning, so was gradually attacked by waves of drowsiness.
おや、大きなあくびだね。朝がずいぶん早かったんじゃないのかい？
ま、そんなとこだよ。緊張が解けて、雨の音を聞いてるうちに眠くなってきちまった。
緊張？あんだけ態度でかそうにしてて、緊張なんてしてたのかよ。
一応、俺なりにはな。
Battler gave a great yawn once again and slowly lay down on the sofa. He really did look tired. George and the others had started talking to him, taking his yawns as a sign of boredom. When they realized he really was sleepy, they decided to let him be.
おやおや、食事の後にすぐ横になるとサバになると申しますよ。
Oh no.
冗談よせゴーダさん、今夜は子牛のステーキだって言ってたぜ。サバのステーキになっちまう。
熊沢さん、こいつ本当に眠いらしい。毛布を持ってきてあげてくれないかな。
さあどうぞ。
Kumasawa brought a blanket over from the shelf. The spacious parlor wasn't cold, but the air had gotten a little chilly. When the blanket was placed over Battler, he immediately wrapped himself up in it and curled up like a turtle, retreating into its shell.
本当に眠かったんだね。
Come on, I want to see Battler with, like, wrapped up in a blanket.
何時かに起きる？起こしてあげるよ。
いや、特に希望は。なんか用があったら起こしてくれりゃいいし、なんにもねえんなら、ずっと眠らせてくれりゃいいぜ。おやすみ。
バトラン寝ちゃうの？お昼寝お昼寝マリアもする。
こらマリア、バトラは眠いんだから放っておいてあげなきゃ。熊沢さん、もう一枚毛布をもらえるかな。
It was doubtful that Maria really wanted to take a nap. She probably just saw Battler wrapped up in a blanket and wanted to do the same. When she received the blanket from Kumasawa, she joyfully wrapped herself up in it and set up camp again in front of the TV.
せっかく6年ぶりにいとこがみんな揃ったってのによ。こいつ、今回の親族会議の主賓だって自覚全然ねえな。
聞こえてるぞ。のんびり昼飯を食って、しかも外は台風で雨。何もすることがねえってことは、つまり俺の出番じゃねえってことさ。
それはどうかな。何も起こらないから何もしないなんて受け身の姿勢じゃ人生
Now
は
this line here, it's not my turn yet. Jessica's saying like, oh, like you're the, you know, the star of the conference because it's your first time being back in 6 years. And she'd said something, if I can find it. Yeah, about making himself the center of attention. But this could also be interpreted as, it's not my turn yet, in the chess game with Beatrice, that he's waiting for Beatrice to make a move, so that it's his turn to make a move.
違うぜ。そういう意味じゃない。なんつうのかな。こういう時、俺はこう思うことにしてる。出番じゃねえんだよ。こいつがお芝居だったならさ、俺の出番じゃねえってことなんだよ。だったら、舞台袖でおとなしくしてるに限るってわけさ。
So basically it seems like his game plan is staying true to like chess or his analogy here of a play. If it's not his turn to actively move, if he can't see that something's happened, he's just going to take a very passive, I'm not going to do anything that might disrupt the flow.
自分の人生はいつだって自分が主人公だろ。そんな脇役根性でどうすんだよ。自分から進んで舞台に上がらなきゃ。
そういう意味じゃねえ。今は俺の出番じゃねえって言いたいのさ。
He just wakes up and everyone's dead.
悪いな。眠くて思考がめちゃくちゃだ。勘弁してくれ。
確かに眠くてなんだか支離滅裂なことを言ってるね。もうそっとしてあげようよ。
私は聞き捨てならねえぜ。自分の人生はいつだって自分が主人公だよ。ちょっとそのあたり本格的にバトラーと議論したいけどな。
寝ぼけてるだけだよ。深く考えちゃダメさ。
なんかさ、自分は主役になれないから舞台に上がりたくないみたいな根性、なぜだかすっげえうぜえって思って。
I think this is going to end up being kind of the same as one of the Higurashi arcs, where it's if you choose to do nothing, you're going to lose because you weren't engaged in the game to begin with. You weren't seeing what your opponent was doing, you weren't actively making moves, you're just waiting to lose. With distant eyes, Jessica gazed out of the window at the grey rose garden, obscured by rain. She put her forehead up to the glass and felt as though the pleasantly cool sensation would chase away memories that she didn't want to remember.
君の出番じゃなかったってこっちゃ。いつ君は舞台に上がるんだよ。
In that case, who is the main character on the stage? So we're now pulled out to the witch chessboard room.
なんだこりゃよ。めちゃくちゃじゃねえか。
そなたがわらわを否定する根拠とする18人だの19人だのという理論が実に滑稽だったのでな。指し手を変えてみたまでよ。そなたがわらわを否定する最大の根拠は単にわらわが駒としてゲーム盤に並ばなかったからというだけのこと。
So going back to the ending of first game, the biggest question, or one of the biggest questions, was how many people are on this island? Does Beatrice exist? Yeah, so it seems like Beatrice has come up by saying, well, I've proven you wrong because look who's seen me this time. Shannon's seen me, Cannon's seen me, your mom has seen me, Rosa has seen me, Genji has seen me. All of these people will vouch that I, in fact, exist and was here. It is no longer an argument of how many people were on this island. Now, the argument Battler can still have is, well, you haven't proven that that person, this version of Beatrice who's there, is a witch. They could still be human.
ならばこうしてクイーンを先に指せばいいだけの話ではないか。初手にてクイーンに道を開けるはチェスの王道ではないか。
This is very true. This is why King or Queen pawn forward is one of the top moves.
ふざけやがって。こんなの認められるわけねえじゃねえかよ。
So this Beatrice in this battle, and maybe this is probably why they changed her outfit, is to differentiate between this is the Beatrice who existed in the first game and who exists in this world outside of the current timeline. So you have the current timeline, which has been reset, and then you have this kind of world outside of it, this omnipotent view that can look down upon all these different timelines and see what's happened. Multi-dark Beatrices. Beatry.
魔女が歩いて玄関からやってきただと。ふざけるじゃね
え。なんだなんだ。前回のゲームではそなたに散々自由に手を進めさせたぞ。こたびはわらわがそなたの手に合わせて駒を動かしたに過ぎん。
Here's my detective badge, can't do anything. So what Beatrice is also arguing is that in the first round, if she's saying she is the quote queen, she's saying she literally beat the last game without using the queen, without it even being on the board.
初手にてもう降参か。
くそったね。ふざけるな。誰が降参なんかするかってんだ。上等な指し手だぜ。好きに進めればいいじゃねえか。なるほどな。まだまだお前の手番は終わってないってわけだ。好きに手を進めりゃいい。今のうちに十分な陣形を築いとく。俺が必ずしのぐ。必ず詰める。言い訳なんてされたくねえ。 存分に来やがるってんだ。まだまだこの程度じゃ魔女なんて認められるわけがねえぜ。そうさ、さっきマリアのお菓子を魔法で直したように見えたが、実は同じお菓子をもう一つ懐に忍ばせていて、芝居がかった方法ですり替えて、あたかも。ああ、そうさ、そうに決まってる。ダメだぜ、全然ダメだぜ。
ほうほう、ローザは菓子が蝶に散る瞬間を見た
So
ぜ。
here we're having the actual debate about this moment of I fixed Rose's candy with magic. And Battler's argument is, well, maybe you're, like a human magician, it was showmanship, sleight of hand. But Rosa saw it thrown into the air and split into butterflies.
知らねえよ。そんなのは幻覚か手品か。さもなきゃ見間違い
I
だ。
don't think Battler's winning this one either.
大した問題じゃねえ。
So it looks like Battler's lost first conflict.
説明のつかぬ部分はさまつと切り捨てたか。なるほど、それがそなたの受け手であるな。墓穴を掘ったぞ、後ろ宮バトラー。お前の手番はまだ先だぞ。もうしばらくわらわの手番を進めさせてもらう。まだまだこれからだぞ、魔女の手番は。
I think that line there, Turn of the Witch, is actually the name of this arc. Even though for me it's showing up in the like bar up at the top is Rondo of the Witch, I think it's actually more commonly translated as Turn of the Witch. Oops, accidentally pressed there. When they started hearing Battler snores, the relatives went their separate ways, leaving the parlor and letting Battler sleep in silence. Even though it had been so lively in the parlor with so many people gathered there, when all of them scattered at once, they were sucked into the vast mansion, created an eerie silence with no sound except that of the rain. And now we no longer know where everyone is.
そんな人間には一度も会ったことはないぜ、兄貴は。
会ったことなんてないわ。キリエさん、本当なの？
私もちょっと玄関ホールに出た時に挨拶をしただけです。20歳ちょっとくらいに見えたわ。私は名乗ったんだけど、彼女は名乗らなかった。源氏さんに案内されて2階へ登っていくのを見たの。
なら源氏さんを見つけて直接話を聞いた方が。
So she's gathered most of the adults, it sounds like, to let them know about her visit with Beatrice.
しかし妙な雲行きになってきよったな。
The mystery woman had spoken to Kyrie. Without naming herself, she'd sneered that Kyrie already had a vague idea of who she was, and that person that brought to mind was her lookalike, the witch of the portrait. Yes, this is very likely. I guess we'll see at dinner when that letter gets read.
そいつは自分が肖像画の魔女様だとそう言いたいってのかよ。
私はそういう意味で笑ったんだろうと理解したわ。私とは初対面でも私があなたの5歳だと知っているような口ぶりだった。
姉貴、本当にそんな奴は知らないんだな。
くどいわよ、そんな金髪女。この屋敷に出入りしたところなんて見たこともない。
そんなようなことはどうでもええで。問題はその女が自分はベアトリーチェだと名乗り、お父さんの財産管理人を名乗った場合の方や。
あるいは愛人の娘を自称して遺産の分配を要求するつもりかし
So
ら。
they're not worried about the magic, they're worried about the money.
いずれにせよとんでもないジョーカーが紛れ込んだものね。兄さんが呼んだの？
No.
それともお父様が？
まずいな。俺たちは兄貴をうまく言いくるめりゃなんとかできるものと思ってきた。しかしこれじゃ。
So the only person that they haven't brought into this conversation is Kraus. So it's It's these four. Actually, and also Rosa's not there as well.
あなたが私の知らないところでどんな策謀を巡らしてたのか知らないけれど、どうも少しは対策を立てる時間を得られたみたいね。
ああ、その金髪姉ちゃんが晩飯の席で突然現れて俺らの度肝を抜くのに比べたら、今からわずかの時間でも対策を協議できる方がマシだ。
何しに現れたか分からへん以上、撃てる対策も限られとるで。向こうの狙いは何なんや。
決まってるでしょ。お父様の遺産の正当な後継者だと言い張るためよ。お父様は未だにベアトリーチェの虜なのよ。その娘がいたなら全財産を譲りたいと言い出すはずだわ。妙な遺言状でも突きつけてくるかもしれない。そりゃ裁判沙汰にすれば半分の4分の1は主張できるかもしれないけど、多分決着するまで遺産分割はできなくなるわよ。それは困る。私もルドルフも、もちろんローザもね。
俺たちはそれぞれの都合で早急にまとまった金がいる。俺たち最大のウィークポイントってわけだ。なら狙いは何だ、キリエ。読める？
初耳なんだけれど、私たちには急ぎまとまったお金が必要だという前提があるのね。
キリエさん、男の商売には攻めの時にこそ軍資金がいるようになることもあるんや。それを分かってえな。
なあにルドルフ、キリエさんには話してなかったの？
すまん、隠してたわけじゃないんだ。実はちょいとした。
いいわ、あなたが私に話す必要がないと判断した話なん
Seems
だから。
Rudolph and Kyrie are having some marital issues in that they didn't really discuss this money.
それをこの場では追求しない。それよりキュームは黄金の魔女様の狙いを探ることなんでしょ。
ああ、俺たちの話を整理した上で敵の撃ってくる手が見えるか。
Rudolph had a certain measure of trust in Kyrie's unique thinking technique, chessboard thinking. Of course, it didn't give him any more peace of mind than fortune-telling, but every time Rudolph was concocting some important strategy, he would give a great deal of thought to Kyrie's advice. For a while, Kyrie pressed her finger against her forehead, considering.
今日の今日まで彼女が訪れることが伏せられていた以上、彼女は私たちに何らかのサプライズを与える目的があった。それが財産なのか親族としての認知なのかは分かりかねるわ。でも今日の今日まで訪れることを伏せていたということは、事前に知らせることで対応を打たれたくなかったと言えるかもしれない。ということは彼女の目的は対応を打たれると不利になるものらしい。わかる？
なるほどな。例えば親父が以前に書かせた遺言状そのものだとか、血縁の認知とそれを証明できるものだとか、そういうものを持ってきたと仮定して、それが揺るぎないもので盤石な証拠だというなら、むしろそれは予告するはずだろうよ。
そうね。むしろ疑う立場にある私たちに弁護士でも鑑定士でも連れてこさせて、グーの音も出ないくらいに事実を突きつけるべきなのよ。それができるならね。
つまり奇襲狙いという時点で敵は真正面からの正攻法では勝てんちゅうことを意味するわけやな。道理や。絶対勝てる切り札は堂々と切るに限るで。回りくどい切り方はむしろ切り札を曇らせるもんや。
結論から言うと、皆さんがご就寝の遺産問題に直接もしくは間接的に絡む相当のサプライズが突きつけられると予想されるわね。おそらく向こうはそのインパクトだけでこちらを圧倒できるつもりでいる。しかしその何かは相当のインパクトを伴いながらも絶対ではない。
But we'll have to see if that letter is changed in any way.
つまりそこがこちらのつけ込む余地というわけね。
あんたはほんま頭の切れるお人や。これだけでも分かればだいぶ心強いで。つまり相手のペースに飲み込まれるなっちゅうことやな。
結局のところ非常にシンプルな結論よ。相手が何を切り出そうとも焦らず冷静に対応する。交渉術の初歩の初歩じゃない。これじゃあ相手の思考を読めたとはとても言えないわ。
いいや、相変わらずなかなかのもんだぜ。こちらに攻める余地があると分かれば余裕も変わってくるってもんだ。
わからないのは彼女とクラウス兄さんの関係ね。クラウス兄さんにとってもサプライズなのか、それとも彼女を呼んだのは他でもないクラウス兄さん自身なのか。もし後者だったなら随分と厄介なことになるかもしれないわよ。
そうね。謎の女を親族会議の当日にこっそり呼びつける。いやらしいセンスがどことなく兄さんっぽい感じもする。
姉貴、こうしよう。女の正体がはっきりと証明できない限り俺らはその女のいかなる身分も認めない。
それが最善ね。現に桐江さんに対して名乗ってすらいない。正体不明の女の発言で私たちの会議がかき回されちゃたまらないわ。
血縁証明でも示してみせるかもしれんで。お父さんの血が流れてることが例えば母子手帳でも示されたらどうにもな。
証明物なんかいくらでも偽装を疑える。仮にそれが本物だったとしても当人が本人だと証明するには病院沙汰にしなきゃならん。少なくとも今の六軒島でそれを証明することは不可能だ。
その通りね。つまりこういうことよ。今の六軒島では何が示されても真実だと受け入れることはできない。
This sentence, no matter what is shown to us now on Rokkenjima, it can't be accepted as truth.
台風が去ってしかるべき場所で証明してみせるまで何も信じられないってことよ。
そういうので上げ足を取りまくるのは姉貴の得意は任せるぜ。
バカ言ってんじゃないわよ。あんたも協力するのよ。私たちにはお金がいる。それも急ぎまとまった額が。私たちは運命共同体よ。こんなところでひょっこり現れた謎の女に遺産の当てをぶち壊されてたまるもんですか。
It was only at a time like this that Rudolph and Eva united as siblings. Sickened by the idea that their own inheritance might be snatched away by an outsider, Kyrie noticed how indomitable they looked, shook her head slightly, and gave a small sigh as she looked out the window. Outside, there was still a strong rain falling, and everything was grey, having lost all vibrance. It felt like the lush garden that the sun had shone on earlier had never existed. For some reason, the words Eva had said just a short while ago kept repeating in Kyrie's head. It boils down to this: no matter what is shown to us now on Rokkenjima, it can't be accepted as truth. There was an odd nuance to those words. Right now, this island was closed off by the typhoon and isolated. There were no official institutions here and no hospital. So no matter what institution issued what kind of documentation on this island, one could claim it was all fiction. It was impossible to prove that something was the truth. They were cut off from the outside world, and all truths proven in the outside world could be called fiction. Did that mean that now on this Rokkenjima there was nothing that was truthful? Everything would be controlled by fiction. It almost gave the illusion that separate from the human world, made from truth, was another world called fiction in which they had been shut away. Kyrie remembered what the woman had looked like one more time. And she remembered the woman's figure and the witch of the portrait. On this island, which had been isolated from the world of humans, shut away from the world of non-humans, a non-human being had visited. No matter what she did, Kyrie couldn't help think of the smile that had appeared on the woman's face as anything other than ominous. In trying to understand that ominous smile, it feels like my chessboard thinking mistook a vital premise. That's right, that smile seemed like that of something non-human looking down on me. I had reasoned based on the assumption that our opponent was a human like us. However, just like this island now, she may be a being that is not human. Human values may not apply to her. In that case, all reasoning is useless. For what reason was the witch invited here today? Only one thing is certain. Right this very moment, she's staying somewhere in this vast mansion. And making servants kiss her feet. Yeah, and it's like 2 rooms over.
マリア、今日のお昼にお外で私たち会ったわよね、女の人に。あれは誰？
おお、何度も言ってる。ベアトリーチェ。
マリアは以前にベアトリーチェと会ったことがあるの？
おお、毎年会ってる。
毎年？この六軒島のお屋敷で？
おお。
じゃわからないでしょ。そうなの？
うん。
いつから会ってるの？何年前から？
おお、わかんない。
わからない？どうして？去年？一昨年？
もっと前か。おお。
Rosa was aghast. Only the Eustramia mansion existed on this island, so there was no way that there were any humans other than themselves on this island. Yet Maria said she'd been meeting with that suspicious woman every year during the family conference. If what Maria said was the truth, then the strange woman called Beatrice had been at the family conference every year. That's insane. She's saying that some eerie woman was at the family conference every year and none of us ever noticed it? Even though Rosa had just met her herself a couple hours ago in the Rose Garden, she was overcome with a strange emotion that told her not to accept her existence. What in the world did I meet with earlier today in the Rose Garden as the typhoon grew close and the winds blew strong?
マリア、あなたは毎年彼女と会ってると言ったわね。会って何をしてるの？
お歌を歌ったり、魔法を習ったり、魔法陣の書き方も習うの。
そう、それはすごいわね。マリアがよく自由帳に落書きじゃない、魔法陣を書いたりしてるわよね。それも彼女に教えてもらったの？
ベアトリーチェにね、お手本書いてもらうの。ほらほら、見て見て。
Marie joyfully fished around in her handbag. Then she took out a notebook and started opening its pages. Most of the pages are covered in drawings that were literally scribbles. All of them were occult-like things. It might sound rude to Maria, who was joyfully flipping through the pages. They were all creepy.
これ、ベアトリーチェが書いてくれた。
We might recognize all of those, I believe, from the last one. On each page Marie opened to, there was another eerie magic circle that had been drawn. Furthermore, at a glance, Rosa realized that Maria hadn't drawn them. The strength of the strokes and thickness of the lines, how clean the shape was. This by itself wasn't enough to guess the background of the person who had drawn it, but it was enough for Rosa to understand that it was definitely someone older than Maria. Rosa had to accept it now. There really was a person in Sorokajima who she hadn't even known existed, and this person had been playing with Maria during the family conference every year.
マリア、その魔女のベアトリーチェはここに住んでいるの？それとも私 私たちのように島の外に住んでいるの？
おう、ベアトリーチェはロッケン島の魔女だからこの島に住んでる。
じゃあ親族会議のない日にもこの島にいるというのね。
おう。
風じゃわからないでしょ。どうなの？
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Can't believe it, I can't believe it. How long has this unknown witch been living on this island? I used to live on this island. I lived on this island passing the time in the manor, in the rose garden. And even so, I never encountered a witch like that. Never, I think.
Mama? Mama? どうしたの？ママ？
I was probably getting a little mixed up with my memories from when I was a young girl. When I was a young girl, unlike Maria, I was very frightened of witches. But for me, the name Beatrice was a synonym for something frightening. So it must be that my feelings of fear from my days as a young girl had been revived because a woman calling herself that has appeared. She couldn't be a witch. She's obviously a human calling herself Beatrice, right? Oh yes. That witch entrusted me with an envelope. What in the world could that be? Rosa pulled the western envelope out of her pocket. It was a western envelope which bore the Ushiromiya crest which Kinzo used on his personal letters. Even been sealed with the red sealing wax by the head's ring which Kinzo held. Which meant this envelope belonged to the Ushiromiya head. In other words, it was from Father. Why was a woman, calling herself Beatrice, holding it, and why did she give it to me? That's right, I'm sure she said to read this aloud at dinner. What in the world could be written inside? Anxiety gripped Rosa, as if opening this envelope might release some kind of monumental disaster. However, at the same time, a little curiosity sprouted up, causing her to want to find out what was written inside before the other siblings. Using common sense, one could guess that a huge decision somehow related to Father's inheritance was probably written inside. Actually, since it had been given... He'd given it to a woman calling herself Beatrice, there was no way that wasn't related. Did this mean that he wanted the inheritance split not between 4, but between 5, including her? I need a large sum of money, and I can't wait long. I do feel like a sinful daughter for discussing the distribution of Father's inheritance while he's still alive. However, I'm no longer at a stage where I can afford to keep everything pretty. I'm even consulting with Rudolfo Nissan and Eva Nason in order to get some money out of Kraus Nissan. Myself in this situation, I can't help but sense something ominous in the appearance of the witch. What can be written in here? I'm sure there must be something frighteningly written. Shall I first read it secretly myself? The witch had requested it be done at the dinner table when everyone was gathered. However, in that case, couldn't she just read it aloud at dinner table by herself? Why did she go to all the trouble of entrusting it to me? I mean, basically, it didn't really matter whether I read it in secret beforehand. It would be better to secretly read the contents first. I understand that would be breaking my promise. This is no longer the time to keep things pretty. It would probably be good to discuss with Eva Nason and Rudolf Nissan, depending on the contents. Nason and the rest are always really good thinkers when it comes to this kind of thing. As I gulped, and put my hand to the red sealing wax. Something suddenly pulled on my sleeve and I let out a small shriek.
Nani? 驚かせないで。何？
ダメ。
Maria was making the same ominous expression Rosa had seen on the witch, sending a tingle up her spine.
ベアトリーチェはママに、その手紙は晩餐で読みなさいって言った。魔女の約束は破っちゃダメだよ。
違うわよ。ちょっと封筒を見ただけじゃない。約束は守るわよ。ママも いつもマリアに約束は守りなさいって言ってるもんね。ママももちろん約束は。
I mean, in fairness, she didn't promise to read it, to not read it beforehand. In fact, I don't even think she really promised that she would read it at dinner. That's just what Beatrice told her to do.
ママはいいか。
その笑い方可愛くないからやめなさい。
おお。
そういえばマリアも封筒をもらったわよね。中にはなんて書いてあったの？
開けてない。ベアトリーチェは開ける時が来るまで開けちゃダメって言った。だから大事に持ってる。うん。
そうマリアはベアトリーチェの言うことはちゃんと聞くのね。
うん。マリアはベアトリーチェの弟子だからお師匠の言うことはちゃんと聞くの。
Rosa realized something. I assumed Maria's gaze was the light of a person other than Maria. If she broke the rules and opened the envelope here, Beatrice would definitely find out about it. Because Maria was the witch's disciple. Maria communicated with that witch.
ママは約束を守るわ。だから安心するようベアトリーチェに言ってね。
うん、伝える。
ねえマリア、ベアトリーチェとお話をしたいんだけど、どうすれば会えるのかしら。
知らない。ベアトリーチェはとても気まぐれだからいつも突然する。マリアからは会う方法を知らない。でもね、いつもマリアのことを見てるの。だからマリアが困っていると後できっと助けてくれるの。きっとね、姿を消してマリアの近くに隠れてるんだよ。
その笑いをやめなさいといつも言ってる。
Thought we would get through an episode without this, but no. Rosa reflexively hit Maria on the head. That put a stop to Maria's laughing voice, but wasn't able to erase the ominous color that had risen to her eyes. Rosa made a pact with herself. She swore that, at least until they left this island, she would not leave Maria alone. She didn't allow an unknown being to make direct contact with her daughter anymore. Well, it's dinner time. Let's see what's inside the envelopes. This section is called Furniture and People.
戻ってこねえな。またローザおばさんに叱られてるのかな。
Ever since they met Maria in the airport, she'd been constantly making a huge fuss about Halloween. It seemed she'd cut loose a little too much. And had acted a little too boisterous on the plane, on the boat, and during lunch, because Rosa had warned her several times. In times like that, Auntie Rosa would rarely scold her in front of people. More commonly, she would call Maria into the shadows and scold her where they were alone. As Maria had been called off somewhere, they thought she must be getting scolded. When they looked at the clock, they realized it was almost 6. They couldn't really imagine that Maria had been scolded this whole time. Perhaps it had come time for some anime she watched every week to start or something. She'd probably just decide to stay in the mansion's parlor.
ひょっとするとバトラ様がお目覚めになって一緒に遊ばれているのかもしれませんね。
マリアちゃんにとってバトラ君は新しい友達のような感じだったろうからね。そのバトラ君と飛行場でハロウィンごっこをするのがきっととても楽しかったんだよ。
バトラもずいぶんはしゃいでたな。あいつ図体はでかくなったってのに中身は昔から全然変わらねえぜ。
そうですね。バトラ様は6年前のままでいてくださった気がします。
シャノンは6年前のバトラ君のこと覚えてるんだ。
ええ、何しろ大層お元気な方でしたから。
僕も6年前に4人で遊んだことを思い出すよ。シャノンはだいぶお姉さん風だったね。
そうだな、今よりしっかりしてた気がするぜ。
それはあの頃は 身の程をわきまえておりませんでしたもので、いろいろと失礼いたしました。
いいよ、そんな礼儀云々は。仕事中はともかく、こうして休み時間に過ごす時の僕らはあの頃から変わらない。
そうだぜ。使用人のシャノンとオフの時の作用は使い分けていいだろう。
So they know her real name.
奴隷じゃないんだぜ。使用人の仕事をしてるだけじゃないかよ。私はシャノンとは、サヨとは一番古い友人だと思ってるぜ。
ありがとうございます、お嬢様。
I mean, I feel like my whole life I've had periodic issues with Twitch. I see no dropped frames on my side. That's probably all the information I can give you. The stream looks stable. It seemed that Shannon understood what lurked under Jessica's words, because she had heard them a little bit from Jessica and Cannon about what had happened between them. Apparently George had also been informed about that more or less. George approached the window and looked up at the darkening, rainy sky.
カノン君はまだ幼いのに考え方が少し背伸びしてるところがあると思うんです。
いや、もうよしてくれよ。まあ私も雰囲気に流されてたところはあったと思うしさ。まあシャノンたちのことを見て、
I have had issues with
ちょっと羨ましいとこ思って
Twitch drops recently. There's a couple games I followed that have had like Twitch drop events, and sometimes it tracks that you're watching it, and sometimes it doesn't. So there was one drop where I needed to watch 2 hours for it. This was the Phasmophobia drop. I probably ended up watching 5 or 6 hours just on in the background, but an active tab before it finally got me 2 hours worth. But then today or yesterday, I was watching another thing for a different game. It worked perfectly fine. So that's the only issue I've had with Twitch recently. That's annoying. Maybe if they've got a status on Twitter or a status page, maybe that shows some kind of stream degradation, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
私のことなんかどうでもいいだろ。それよりジョージ兄さんたちの方はどういう感じなんだよ。だいぶいい感じなんだろ。
どうなんでしょう。
とてもいい感じだよ。
Shannon was lost for words, her face red, while George answered brightly and immediately. The carefree attitude made it obvious that their relationship was proceeding so perfectly it would make anyone envious.
やけるぜ。ってことはシャノンもそのうち寿大社ってわけなんだ。
どうなんでしょう。私には
どうなんだろうね。僕にもわからないね。
Bird laughed like he was being mean and drew closer to Shannon. Probably the way they usually flirted when they were alone. Jessica could only smile awkwardly and say, "Yes, yes, thank you, that's enough."
僕には夢がある。それは一国一城の主になりたいというビジネス的な野望だけじゃない。生涯を共にできる伴侶と幸せな家族を築きたいという夢もある。子供は最低でも2人欲しいとか、家族で一緒にできるスポーツをしたいねとか、他にもいろいろ。そんな話をよくシャノンとはするよ。こんなことを話すといつもシャノンには気が早いですねと笑われるんだけど、僕はこの年のうちからもうなぜか落ち着いた老後のことを考えてしまうんだよ。元気に成長した子供たちと駆け回る孫たちと、そういうものに囲まれていつまでもシャノンと2人ゆっくりと余生を送れたらなって。
そりゃ確かに気の早い話。でもなんていうのか、ジョージ兄さんらしい話だな。
そんな家族に囲まれたらさぞ素敵でしょうね。 私の思い描いていた理想の家族もそんな感じだったと思います。
To Shannon, who'd been raised in a welfare institute, that harmonious image of family was probably something she yearned after. And George, who promised that he would definitely grant that wish for her, was surely a fitting person for her to spend her life with. Shannon was an important friend to Jessica. George was surely the one most fit to entrust that friend's future to.
水を差すわけじゃねえけど、秀吉おじさんはともかく、エヴァおばさんとかどうなわけ？説得は大変じゃないの？
そんなことは誰も気にする必要はないよ。僕が誰を伴侶に選ぶかは誰にもはばかられない。シャノンは僕が幸せにする。それに誰の許可が？
Yeah, one or all of you is going to die.
ジョージ兄さんかっこいいぜ。よくそんな恥ずかしいセリフを堂々と。昔の兄さんはそういうキャラじゃなかったと思ったんだけどな。
男子3日合わざれば刮目して待つべしさ。僕だって成長する。シャノンを幸せにするために僕はもっともっと勉強してふさわしい男に成長するつもりだよ。
It seemed that perhaps George had some kind of awareness of how embarrassing the words coming out of his mouth were. His face turned very slightly red and he scratched his head.
ジョージさん。
大丈夫。母さんは確かにごねるかもしれないけど、僕に任せておけばいい。親族全員に君が僕の伴侶だと認めさせてみせる。
すっげえな。シャノンが羨ましいぜまったく。
そこまで言ってもらえて、恐縮です。
っていうかよ、私はお邪魔虫なんじゃないかって気がしてきたぜ。席を外した方がいいか？
Smiling awkwardly, Jessica stepped from the bed she'd been sitting on. That very moment, the phone rang. Before Jessica picked up the receiver, wondering what they wanted, Shannon looked at the clock and was taken aback. It seemed she'd taken too long on her break.
すみません。私、お勤めの時間を忘れております。これで失礼します。
Same time that Jessica picked up the phone, Shannon began dashing out of the room.
シャノン、またいつもの時間に、いつもの場所で。
はい。失礼します。
もしもし、ジェシカです。ああ、ゲンジさん。はい。シャノンは今そっちに戻ってますよ。私たちが引き止めちゃったんです。叱らないでやってください。ええ。はい。
そっか、もうじき夕飯の準備の時間なんだね。
Many plates were lined up on the counter in the kitchen, and preparations for dinner were proceeding steadily. The number of plates that were lined up there was 19. The number was one more than were lined up during the family conference every year.
納得できません。どうして私が直接お届けに上がってはならないのですか。
Goto-san was flaring up at Genji, paying no heed to the pot that was boiling over. The master enjoys having his food alone in his study, so the food must be set out in the study. Of course, this is nothing new, you understand. So, Battler's new, but is Beatrice not also new? Or has Beatrice retconned it so that she was always there? Or did Kinzo always put out a plate for Beatrice hoping that she would appear? Goto-san would really like to set the table for the master with his own hands as he put his heart and soul into his cooking. But the master had imposed a strict rule that none but the servants bearing the crest of the Golden Eagle could enter study. Okay. I don't know if I'd actually noticed this before. So, Golden Eagle, Golden Eagle, Golden Eagle, no Golden Eagle, no Golden Eagle. So Goda and Kumasawa are not allowed to visit Kinzo in his study. Those are also the two that have not yet met with Beatrice, that we know of at least. So Goda-san could greet the master from outside the study. Not once had he been granted the honor of carrying his cooking into the study. Goda-san was always unsatisfied with this. Of course, he knows he's a newcomer in terms of years of service. However, he's accumulated plenty of experience from his previous jobs, and he is strongly confident that he'll be able to conduct himself properly, even in front of Kinzo in a way that would not insult him. And yet, just because he's not permitted the Golden Eagle, he still has to have been blessed with this honor.
それが彼のプライドをどれほど傷つけていたか。では今夜も再びそれを蒸し返しているのかというと、今夜は親方様の他にもお部屋まで食事を運んでもらいたいという方が、その人物は非常に稀な賓客らしく、当主である親方様と同格の扱いをするように、きつゴーダさんはこの賓客にぜひ自らの手で配膳してポイントを稼ぎたかったに違いありません。虚栄心のお強い方でございますから、親方様に配膳する資格はなくても、せめてそれと同格の来客に昼食はどうしても手が開かず、カノンさんに言ってもらった。だから一年で最高の晩餐である今夜の食事をぜひ自分の手で配膳したかったのです。ですがそれを源氏さんに咎められたのでございます。合田さんに片翼の足がないからということのようです。再び資格がないと咎められ、合田さんの堪忍袋の緒が切れてしまったのでございます。おいたわしや合田さん、私は物陰からこうして見守るしかないのでございます。
熊沢さん、油を売っている暇があったら食堂の準備をしてきてください。テーブルクロスは大丈夫ですか？
これは失礼。
It became her turn to bear the brunt. Kumasawa softly disappeared into the hall.
ベアトリーチェ様は親方様と全く同格のお方です。ルールも親方様のそれと同じものを尊ばなくてはならない。ゴーダは自分の仕事に専念し、親族の皆さんのお相手をするよう。
そのようなお客様相手に源氏さんならともかくこんな子供を行かせていいのですか？もし何かの粗相があったら失礼にあたります。確かに彼らの年季は長いですが、しかるべきところで修行をしたことがあるわけじゃない。正直に申し上げてお客様に接する基礎ができていないのです。
Goda spoke bluntly, even though Shannon was waiting right there in the kitchen. Shannon was the one who Genjin ordered to carry the food to Beatrice's room. By the ranking system among the servants permitted the Golden Eagle, Shannon was indeed the second highest ranked. The highest ranked Genji went to set the table in Kinzo's room, then it fell to Shannon to set the table in Beatrice's room. Goda's pride was always horribly injured when he was confronted with this ranking system. In times like that, he would speak out bluntly and rudely about Shannon and Cannon. Goda kept raising example after example of Shannon's past failures, making a ruckus about how this was wrong and that was wrong. When Shannon listened to this with her head hung in shame, she heard Cannon's voice from behind her. Cannon had been listening from a blind spot leaning against the hallway side of the wall near the entrance to the kitchen. I guess furniture was fine. He probably knew if he entered the kitchen, sparks would start to fly his way.
言わせておきなよ。最低の男だ。
でも接待の基礎の勉強になるし、 合田さんはたくさん勉強してるからとても参考に。
姉さんは優しいね。
それより貴賓室のお客様がベアトリーチェ様だというのは本当なの？
うん、昼食の配膳に行かされた時にあった。間違いなくあいつだったよ。
そう、お元気そうだった？
Shannon remembered that he and Shannon had different impressions of Beatrice. For Shannon, Beatrice was a cupid of love who had granted her magic to create her relationship with George. Judging by her happy expression, it looked like she couldn't wait to inform Beatrice of how her relationship with George had progressed. However, Cannon already knew the witch had come with a terrifying goal in mind. That vague witch, in the past only visible to them, had now walked openly through the front door, and had revived enough that they could now carry food to her. In the past, when she had disappeared in front of Cannon, the witch had said something about her own power and was still weak. Now that the witch could appear openly like this, did that mean that she had finally returned to her former power? And she had clearly said that she had sown the seeds of love with the knowledge that it would fail. She had said clearly that the day had finally come when the door to the Golden Lane would be opened.
シャノン、あいつは親方様の何かの怪しげな儀式をし、きっと想像もできない恐ろしいことをする。それには誰も抗えない。
何の話なの？
あいつはやってきたんだ。親方様が求めた黄金鏡の扉を開き、全てを黄金鏡に戻すために。あいつは僕に確かにそう言った。
In the past, the two of them, as furniture working for Kenzo, had been told that the opening of the door to the Golden Land meant. Therefore, even without asking a single question in response, Shannon understood everything. So, she grew deeply hopeless. Something tore at Cannon's heart as he saw her expression twist with grief.
そうだ。どうして今になって。
だから言ったんだ。僕らは家具だって。人間の真似事なんかして恋なんかするから。僕たちの役目の終わるこの日を、
いつかこの日が訪れることをかつては願ってた。でもいつまで経っても訪れなくて、私たちはいつまで家具として苦しめばいいのか。だから私思ったの。安息の日なんて永遠に訪れないんだって。
僕だって。でも必ずいつか訪れるって僕は信じてた。だから僕は家具としての自覚を忘れなかったんだ。なのに姉さんは忘れた。
私が悪いのね。私が。
ああ、姉さんが悪い。姉さんさえ恋を覚えなかったら、僕たちはようやく訪れた今日を喜び合うはずだった。姉さんがくだらない未練を作ってしまったんだ。必ず去らなければならない世界なのに。
儀式は今夜始まるの？
あと今夜ジョージ様は姉さんに婚約指輪を贈るだろうって。
That was a fact. Khrushchev snuck in an engagement ring in his pocket today. Surely he would hand it over tonight.
あいつは姉さんとジョージ様を第二の番の生贄に使うつもりで二人の仲をくっつけたんだ。わかる？姉さんはあいつにそそのかされた上利用されたんだよ。
そうだったの。考えたこともなかったわ。
でもあいつは言ったよ。もし今夜その婚約指輪を受け取らなかったなら姉さんを生贄に選ばないと約束した。僕たちが揃って黄金鏡へ行ける確率はとても低いと思う。13人が生贄になる。
I don't think Furniture is lying in what he's saying right now. Well, we didn't exactly see this conversation, but I don't think he's lying. I think there might be some deception is on Beatrice's side. Because imagine this. If you were Beatrice and you say, like, oh, if you don't accept the ring from George, I won't kill you, I won't make you the sacrifices on the second night. But I can make you sacrifices on the first night. Technically, I haven't lied. I'm just bending the truth.
生き残るのは5人だけ。その中に僕たち2人が入れる確率は本当に低い。でも姉さんだけでもその約束が得られるなら確率はもっと上がる。僕はかけたいんだ。黄金鏡には救いがある。僕たちはそこへたどり着き人間を手に入れるんだ。そして姉さんと2人で人間としての人生を歩みたいんだよ。
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting is after Canon kisses her feet, that there was more to it after that, that, you know, she's like, oh, now that you've submitted to me, I can promise you that Shannon won't die if she doesn't accept the ring. I could see a scene like that playing out off screen.
そうすれば本当の恋だってできるかもしれない。
かつての私たちは黄金鏡へ行けることを夢見てたね。
Take care, out and have a great evening.
そこへ行けばどんな願いでも叶う。私たちをこの苦しみから救ってくれる。そう信じてた。
However, in this ritual, only a few people, chosen by fate and chance, be invited to the Golden Land. Everyone else would lose their life as a sacrifice midway through the ceremony. In the past, Shannon and Canon had thought that whether they reached the Golden Land or made sacrifices, it would be all the same, because they would be released from their duties as furniture either way. Yes, and then I think it says they're reborn. Let's go. On the night the witch revives, none shall be left alive. On the 10th, you shall reach the home of the gold. And then brings back everyone's souls. So if we do what Ken is saying, so it's 6, then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 immediately die. Well, not 13 die through the process, which leaves the 5 remaining. It sounds like the 5 remaining get to go to the Golden Land. It sounds like that's the implication, or that's what they've been promised. In short, the ritual had been something that would definitely grant release to furniture like them.
僕は嫌だ。これまでの辛かった分を姉さんと取り戻したい。
Wasn't there also something about if you make it to the Golden Land, it like makes a wish come true? There's something like that. So I think that's why Beatrice was saying you could be human. I could, like, if your wish is to no longer be furniture but to be human, that could happen in the Golden Land.
生贄なんてごめんだ。僕と姉さんは生き残る。そして2人で黄金鏡へたどり着く。だから姉さんを第二の番の生贄になんかさせない。頼むよ姉さん。あの男の指輪を受け取らないで。それを受け取らなければあいつは姉さんを生贄には選ばないと約束してくれ。
それはできないよ。今夜の指輪はとても特別なもの。それを受け取らないことは私の心が許さない。
姉さん。
I think in the end everyone gets to go through, but maybe only those 5 people get an actual wish, and the rest of the people, their wish is used up in coming back to life.
儀式の生贄は魔女が気まぐれに決めることになってる。その魔女が姉さんだけは見逃すと約束してくれたんだよ。姉さんだけは 絶対に黄金鏡へ行けるんだ。
私だけ？カノン君は？
僕は魔女のゲームで十分さ。あいつの魔女なんかかいくぐってやる。僕は無力じゃない。わずかの確率を無理やり掴み取ってやる。僕たちのせいなんて所詮は仮初めじゃないか。本当の人生を始めるために僕たちは黄金鏡へたどり着こう。そして人間。そうしたらさ、僕も姉さんみたいに恋が知れるかな。もう家具だからって人を泣かせずに済むかな。
カノン君。
僕はもう家具は嫌だ。絶対に人間になってやる。こんな苦しみから絶対に。
Why do I feel like Cannon's going to be the last sacrifice? There were tears in Cannon's eyes. It had taken Cannon until now to notice. Shannon hadn't been the only one to know and suffer the taste of love. He had too. The tears Jessica had shown him that day, and her painful smiles in all the days since, she tried to smooth things over and brighten her mood. It slowly wrought some kind of change on Cannon's heart without him knowing it.
Shannon. さっきから呼んでいる。
Shannon snapped back to reality at the sudden sound of Genji's voice. Apparently she had been called for repeatedly. He hurriedly answered. When she turned around, Cannon had disappeared. It seemed he didn't feel like showing his tears to anybody.
はい、ぼんやりしていてすみません。
昼食はカノンに頼んだが、本来は私の次の序列のお前が運ぶべきものだ。ベアトリーチェ様は当家の最高の賓客だ。それ以上の賓客はいない。もう一人の親方様と思い、丁重に頼む。
よろしいですか。くれぐれも粗相のないようにお願いしますよ。経験の未熟なあなたに託すのは非常に心苦しいですが、当家のルールとあっては仕方ありません。くれぐれも頼みますよ。
Buddha had officially agreed, but he had threatened Shannon with an expression that told her that he definitely wouldn't forgive any mistakes. Shannon too thought that Goda should do it if he wanted to that much, but considering it as her responsibility as the one who'd been granted the Golden Eagle, she had to give up. Besides, I wanted to meet Beatrice. I mean, you have. What will I talk about? What will I ask? I don't know. Will I show gratitude? Or else grief? Or else what? I don't know. Shannon loaded the witch's food onto the serving cart and left the kitchen with a slow gait. First knocking was Kraus.
今日は年に一度の親族会議です。お父さんを一目見ようと兄弟が揃ったのではありませんか。
It's a good question. Maybe they have a dumb waiter and they put the food up the dumb waiter and then they can just move the cart without fear of it toppling anything.
出ぬと言っている。源氏、そこにいるのであろう。なぜ私の指示した通りに食事をここへ運ばせん。
Enzo screamed through the door. Genji was waiting behind
お
Kraus.
食事は書斎へ運べるよう準備しております。ただ、クラウス様が今夜はどうか下へ降りていただきたいと。
お父さん、毎日とは言いません。せめて今夜だけでも家族で揃ってはくれませんか。
誰が家族か。貴様はいつから生き倒れを待つハゲタカたちを家族と呼ぶようになった。腐りて湧き出すウジ虫を家族と呼ぶようになったのか。
いや、あれ。
Kraus shrugged at the Sanso she had half expected.
言われた通りに食事をここへ運べ。なぜ言うことを聞かぬ。なぜ
源氏さん、後を頼みます。もうあの人に私の声は届か。
Kraus gave his head a small shake and quickly turned his back on the door to the study. It only called out for sibling's sake, knowing it was useless. After Genji watched Kraus go down the stairs, he called again through the door.
親方様、お食事を運ぶ準備はできております。南條先生の分はいかがいたしますか。
Nanjo was also in study. Because Kinzo had strongly pestered him about resolving their long-lasting chess game, Nanjo had been Kinzo's opponent since before evening. Nanjo had announced as a doctor that Kinzo's days were numbered. In that situation, if Kinzo pestered him about finishing a chess game while he was still alive, Nanjo couldn't refuse. Kinzo was thinking deeply about his move, concentrating more than usual. It had been Kinzo's turn for quite some time, and Nanjo, who was tired of waiting, started randomly pulling out grimoires that he couldn't understand and skimming through them.
金蔵さん、盤面を前に腕を組むだけではいい一手は出ませんぞ。一つ休憩をして頭をリフレッシュしてみるのもいいのではありませんかな。
黙れ。守りはこれで十分か。ビショップやナイトに隙間を突かれはしないか。
Okay, here's the chessboard. I post this on Discord. Today, Kinzo was insistent on a strong defense. Normally, Kinzo's motto was that offense was the best defense. However, today was completely the opposite.
私も腹が減りました。ここいらで中断しませんか。それに休みなく頭を回転させておりましたから、もう頭がクラクラです。これ以上は私も最善手をさせるとは限りませんぞ。
それは困る。チェスは互いに常に最善手を指さねばならぬ。そうでない一手は理解に苦しみ、思考を読むゲームを狂わせてしまう。それでは今日を著しく削ぐというものだ。
Kinzo sighed deeply and finally shifted his gaze away from the board. Chess needs an opponent. The opponent was tired, suggesting to suspend the game, so what else could be done?
確かにチェスの目的は勝利を目指すことで、そしてそれを読み合う知的ゲームです。ですが勝利以外にもう一つ目的があることを金蔵さんはお忘れではありません。
なんだ、勝利以外にどんな目的があるというのか。
金蔵さんがそんなこともお忘れとは。チェスを通し親友と楽しい時間を過ごすですぞ。
参ったな。それは確かずいぶん昔に私がお前に言った言葉だったはず。これは参った。
Kinzo, who normally wore a frown, surprisingly relaxed his face and laughed. Nanjo felt like he'd been reunited with a close friend he hadn't seen in a long
そういう
time.
ことです。一本取られたついでにどうです。私と下に降りて食事と行きませんかな。食後にコーヒーと一緒にカスパロフの中盤についての議論でもいかがです。
良い提案だが遠慮する。私はもうこの部屋から出られない。儀式は始まっているのでな。
そうですか。では私はお腹もペコペコですからな。下へ降りることにします。気が向いたらいつでも。
南條ありがとう。
おや、何の礼ですかな。
お前とのチェスの決着はつかなかった。だが私が忘れていたチェスの目的はどうやら果たせたらしい。それはどうもチェックメイトと同じくらい重要なものであったらしい。
らしくもない。何の干渉ですかな。
お前が言ったのではないか。私には余命がないと。もう行け。そしてもうこの部屋へ来るな。続きは黄金鏡であろう。
いいですが、仕切り直しですぞ。ルークが落ちてしまったのは痛手ですのでな。それでは後ほど。
ああ、後ほどな。
They say losing the rook, but I'm pretty sure if I go back to that picture, both sides still had their rooks. Let me pull up the picture. I can confirm that picture, both sides still have both their rooks. Yeah. It looks like black castled queen side and white never castled, based on the picture. Yes, because of Battler. I mean, I guess you could argue this is still purgatory, because this is still them reliving everything until either Battler or Beatrice concedes. Nanu didn't say anything beyond that. The practice hand, he pushed the button on the table that would release the auto lock. Then after looking at Kinza's back one last time, he left the study. As he did, Genji's voice came from the hall.
これより夕食をお運びいたします。
最後の晩餐になるやもしれん。味わわねばな。準備を頼む。
かしこまりました。親方様のご準備の方は万端となりましたか。
この部屋を今日まで十重旗への結界で厳重に包んだ。あれのルーレットが私を選ぼうとも必ずや弾き返す。そして生き残り、黄金鏡へたどり着くうちの一人は絶対に私となる。
If he has all of these wards that keep Beatrice and her powers out, how does he die? How does he make it from here down into the cellar fire?
私を冥府へ連れ去ろうとする死神どもの来訪をも拒もうぞ。
失礼します。お食事の準備に参りました。
Shannon entered the VIP room, bowing her head and pushing the serving cart. The young woman by the window, apparently gazing out into the impenetrable darkness outside, was unmistakably that witch. She can also apparently peer out through the impenetrable curtain.
今度はシャノンか。懐かしいな。ほう、顔色がだいぶ良くなったではないか。カノンとは違うな。見違えたぞ。
ありがとうございます。
Ah, yes, the wonderful view of the darkness. Shannon solemnly prepared dinner. There were actually several things that she wanted to ask and talk about with the witch. Those things were all jumbled up, and she didn't know where to start. Her heart was also jumbled up with various things, and she didn't even understand her own emotions. Therefore, still vague, all she could do was carry out her work indifferently. However, the witch guessed what was in her heart. You can't hide things from a witch.
謝らぬぞ。わらわは魔女だからな。
何がでしょ
う。おや、カノンから聞かされたであろう。そなたの恋路を助けたのはわらわの単なるいたずら心。いかにしてこじれ ねじれ破綻するかを干渉するためにまいた種に過ぎぬと。
恋はするより聞く方が楽しい方もおられるでしょう。
まさかわらわに感謝しようというのではある。
はい、あなたが私にどんな下心があって恋のあなたが私に与えてくれたものは変わらない。だから添い遂げられないと知りつつまいた種であったとしても私は恨んだりしません。
やはり家具というのは面白みのないそれを面白く調理するのがわらわの腕の見せ所よの。
私にベアトリーチェ様のお考えは分かりません。あなたは私たちなど足元にも及ばない大魔女で、その遠大な資料など想像するにも至りません。でも一つだけ言えることがある。
なんだ。
私に人間を教えてくれてありがとう。あなたが言った私はもう家具じゃない。
黙れ家具。真の人間ならば婚約指輪を受け取ろうという日に告げられた死の宣告に嘆き狂いて踊り出すだろう。なのにそなたは達観し全てを受け入れたような顔つきではないか。実に拍子抜けだぞ家具。
いいえ、私は家具じゃない。
黙れ家具。
黙りません。家具ではありませんから。
わらわの命令が聞けぬという。
Yes, you are. No, you're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not.
家具なら命令に従います。でも人間は命令に従うかどうかを自分で決めます。だから私はあなたの命令に従わない。
前言を撤回する。やはり面白いぞ。種をまかねばそなたは何の感情も抱かず儀式に身を任せただろう。しかし今のそなたは実に面白く育ちわらわを心底楽しませてくれるぞ。それでいい。わらわは退屈を愛さないのだから。
お夕食の準備が整いました。どうぞ。
なかなかうまそうではないか。ゴーダが黄金鏡へたどり着くことがあればわらわの料理長に任命してやってもよかろう。
カノン君に聞きました。私にジョージさんの婚約を断らせれば私を生贄にしないなんて約束をしたとか。
したぞ。そなたは第二の晩にうってつけの生贄候補だったのだがな。カノンがそれを許せと泣いて叫ぶので寛大に聞き入れてやったのよ。そなたが婚約を破棄すればとの条件付きでな。わらわのなんと寛大なことよ。
なんてバカな条件、そしてなんてバカな脅迫。そんなものでカノン君をいじめ抜いたというの。
ほう、わかるのか。
Apparently, Shannon had seen through it. Apparently, she could imagine how much Cannon had been bullied and humiliated by the witch. That horrible promises made.
絨毯に這いつくばらせ、わらわの靴にキスをさせてやったぞ。それだけではない。他にどのような恥ずかしめを与えたか。
Oh, yes, please. Yes, we want the paid OnlyFans version of what happened to Cannon. Dang it, Shannon! Shannon silently shook her head.
あなたという人を私はようやく理解しました。
It's the BDSM, but the B stands for Beatrice.
あなたは人をいじめ、惑わ
I
せ、
also love that. I don't think captions.
それを
I think
楽し
they
む。
censored that whole sentence because of BDSM. It also worries me that captions understands what BDSM is.
だから あなたに抵抗する唯一の方法がこれであると確信した。
なんだ。
Beatrice does shady magic. BDSM.
あなたなんか知らない。私は私に与えられた運命を全うする。だからあなたを面白がらせたりしない。
あなたなんか。
The witch's features twisted in hatred for just an instant, disappeared immediately. The expression that rose to her face for only a brief time was unusual for the witch, who had never broken her malicious smile.
そういう抗い方もあるか。面白い。気に入った。殺してやる。お前の思い人と一緒に。
それがあなたに決められた運命ならばご随意に。私はそれに怯えたり逆らったりしません。これから起こる苛烈な運命があなたの意志によるものだなんて信じないから。私たち人間は未来に起こりうる運命など知らない。だからこそ最後の瞬間まで自分の信念と運命に従い精一杯生き抜く。運命はただのサイコロの目。そこに悪意なんて感じない。あなたが吹き込もうと信じない。
ほう、家具をやめたくせに死を恐れぬとはな。それがわらわを退屈させると思っているようだが、それはそなたが本当に最後の瞬間までそれを貫けるか。
私は悔しい。どうしてあなたは人の姿をして私たちの前に現れ、人の言葉で語り私たちを嘲笑うのか。私たちの前に現れず運命を予告しなかったなら、私たちは最後の一瞬まで精一杯生きられるのに。
それが魔女というものよ。貴様らの運命を食い物に、工事の存在として定時の存在の上に君臨する。そなたらの運命など、所詮はかけら。両手で碗を作ればいくらでも救える。わらわに飼われた肉牛どもが何をほざこうとも、わらわの食卓を楽しませる結果に変わりはせぬのに同じこと。
Or maybe the mystic who used the mirror to like limit her powers.
無力な私たちにはあなたの儀式にも運命にも抗うことなどできない。しかしあなたに今すぐ不愉快な思いをさせることはできる。
ほう、それは何か。
今すぐここを立ち去ることです。あなたの言葉に答えることは全てあなたを楽しませている。あなたの問いかけに答えないことがあなたへ唯一できる抵抗です。
なるほどなるほど。一矢報いることはできよう。しかしわらわを倒すことはできぬぞ。わらわは誰しもを永遠に殺す力を持っている。永遠に繰り返し殺される輪廻の中で、そなたがいつまでその抵抗をできるのか忘れるなよ。自らが口にした言葉。
それでは失礼いたします。ご用がありましたらお呼びください。
Shannon gave a reserved bow as she would to a stranger and faced away. That gesture, maybe she really had taken a shot back at the witch, just as Beatrice had mentioned. So when the witch called out again, she seemed a little more quick-tempered than she had before.
カノンはわらわに感謝したぞ。そなたは感謝せぬのか。安息の日をわらわが与えることを。
家具なら安息の日を喜びましょう。ですが私は人間ですので、だからあなたに感謝することはありません。ご用はそれだけですか？
ジョージから指輪をもらうつもりであろう。受け取ればわらわがカノンと交わしたそなたを生贄に選ばないという約束を破棄すること。
まだご用があるなら他のものを来させますので。それでは失礼いたします。
flat-out interruption. Shannon gave no more answers. The sound of the door closing came instead of an answer. It seemed that Shannon's resistance had probably struck far more deeply into the witch than Shannon herself had thought. As an expression of hatred had once again risen to Beatrice's face. She had made Cannon submit, even though he hadn't been taken in until the end. Yet after that, now it was Shannon who refused to submit. Until now, she had been easily taken in.
やはりこれは面白いことではないか。わらわもまだまだ若いか。これだから1000年は生き飽きぬのよ。
The most fabulous time in the family conference. That was the dinner. Back when Kinzo had been serious about the family conference, he had placed extreme importance upon this dinner for which everyone would gather just once a year. Should the dinner not meet his standard, he would take it as the deepest shame for himself as the host. He had strongly ordered Natsui to make absolutely sure that it was one to be proud of. Because of that, she and Krause had employed Goda, who had confidence in his cooking abilities. As a result, they could unveil a wonderful dinner they had confidence in. Yet by that time, Kinzo had started closing himself up in the study and no longer appeared for dinner. Maybe you could call that ironic. When the main dish for tonight, calf steak, was set out, Goda began to brag about it, further exciting everyone's appetite.
こちら、ソースはボルドレーズとなっております。ベースの赤ワインはもちろん、ボルドー産の中でも素晴らしいものを使用しておりますが、その他にも当家オリジナルブレンドとしまして、世界各地数種類の名酒をブレンドしまして、より深い味わいとなりますよう整えてございます。このソースは本年限りのものでございます。どうかお楽しみいただければ幸いです。
This sauce will be exclusive to this year. Rated as I didn't write down the ingredients and how much I put in it, so I don't remember.
素晴らしいじゃないか。しかし、ボルドレーズソースはフランス料理の王道ではないのかね。それに、フランス以外の酒を使うのは少し邪道ではないかという気もするね。
旦那様、本日は年に一度の親族会議でございます。普段は遠方にお住まいの皆様がはるばるお越しになり、一堂に集われた夜の晩餐には、世界各地より普段は出会うことのない名酒を取り寄せブレンドしたソースが何よりもふさわしいかと存じ、特別にご用意させていただいたのでございます。
素晴らしい、本当に素晴らしい料理人や。あんたは能書きが変わると料理も薬も効果は2倍になるっちゅうわけやな。元の料理のうまさも2倍、さらに能書きで2倍、味の倍々ゲームや。
いやね、ニース、その質問読まれてたんじゃないの？
違いねえな。まんまと美味しいところをゴーダさんに持ってかれちまったぜ。
そうかね。今日の料理をフランス風だと気づいていない者もいるんじゃないかと。エヴァは先ほどバターを使わないのが美徳と言ったが、それはスペイン風だ。確かに国境を接してはいるがね。
そういう意味で話の一部分だけ抜き出して勝手に加工しないでくれるかしら。
とっても美味しいソースね。ゴーダさんは本当に素晴らしいわ。
お褒めに預かり大変光栄です。これもすべて奥様の日頃のご指導のおかげでございます。
いえ、すべてゴーダのアイディアです。私はレシピを聞き承認しただけです。
It looked like the siblings quickly got into a loud argument about something as trivial as the sauce. For the most part, dinner proceeded peacefully. However, the thing that they all really wanted to ask about smoldered inside each of their hearts. That was the visitor, the 19th person. The Golden Witch. Interesting, there's only 13 chairs at this table. There's 19 people, 5 servants, so there'd have to be another chair added. In actuality, Eva, Rudolph, and Kyrie were on high alert during dinner. If the mystery guest was to be introduced, this dinner table was the most appropriate place to do it. However, no plates had been prepared at the table for the witch. Family conference would begin in earnest after the meal, when previous experiences told them it could last until deep into the night. But they couldn't understand what meaning there could be in keeping this person who should be introduced. I clicked too soon. Hidden until late at night. So Eva, Rudolph, and Kyrie had started to suspect something. The guest might actually be unknown to Kraus as well. She wasn't a saboteur called by Kraus to give him an advantage in the inheritance problem. They should probably speak frankly to Kraus beforehand and create a common front to resist anything disadvantageous to the four siblings. If she was Kinzo's saboteur, whose purpose was to keep the inheritance from being handed over to the four siblings, the enmity between Kraus and the other siblings could be nothing more than a weak point that benefited the enemy.
それではごゆっくりお楽しみください。
With the table set and the cuisine explained, Goda tried to leave the room, but Kyrie called him to stop with a small voice.
はい、キリエ様、何か。
ごめんなさい。今日はお客様がいらっしゃってると思ったんだけど、晩餐にはお見えにならないのかしら。
She thought she'd said it nonchalantly, but unfortunately it reached the ears of Natsuhi, who was sitting in the next seat. It seemed that Natsuhi had heard it to mean even though there were guests here today, won't the host be coming to dinner? In other words, that Kyrie had asked whether Kinzo was going to come to dinner.
当主様は体調が優れられませんので、お部屋で食事をとると仰せです。主人が初めにそう説明いたしましたが。
ごめんなさい。そうじゃないの。
In an instant, Kyrie realized from Natsuhi's reaction that this unknown visitor was also unknown to Kraus and his wife. And what that meant, on the chessboard placed inside Kyrie's mind, she could feel the arrangement of pieces changing, making loud clattering sounds.
客?
It seemed the battler, who was sitting next to Natsuhi, had heard Kyrie's words without misunderstanding them, let out a wild voice questioning who else could have been invited to today's family conference. Thanks to that voice, the uncomfortable feeling in the siblings' chest suddenly exploded. Everyone looked at Goda at the same time. Judging by their appearance, it was obvious that at least no one here had invited that mysterious woman. For an instant, Goda was startled, and I double pressed again, to find everyone's gaze gathered on him, but because of his natural vain personality, this actually gave him the feeling of superiority. Therefore, he answered in an extremely calm and graceful manner.
貴賓室でお一人で食事を取られたいとのことで、そちらへお運びしております。
Therefore, Goda's extremely graceful and reasonable response made it obvious to everyone that a 19th person, a visitor, existed.
貴賓室？客？何の？誰の話ですか？
Natsuhi's words echoed the question that everyone who didn't know about the visit of the Golden Witch was thinking. Goda was slightly disoriented, as though he hadn't remotely expected to be questioned by Natsuhi. That honored guest had been spoken of so stringently. He hadn't imagined that Kraus and his wife might not have known.
そのベアトリーチェ様でございます。
ベアトリーチェ、ほらほら、ベアトリーチェ来てるでしょ。
Maria had been telling the other cousins over and over again that she had met Beatrice today. The cousins had answered saying, "Isn't that nice?" but they hadn't believed. Their eyes grew wide.
すまねえ。俺はてっきりマリアの冗談だと思ってたぜ。本当にいたんだな。
ベアトリーチェって、あの黄金のベアトリーチェなのかよ。
マリアはいるってずっと言ってる。誰も信じてない。
ごめんね、マリアちゃん。そういうつもりじゃないんだよ。
After learning that everyone had doubted Beatrice's existence, Maria, who'd been in a good mood all day, completely lost her temper. George, who was sitting next to her, tried frantically to calm her.
ゴーダ、それもディナーの何かの余興なのかね。なかなかの味な演出だ。
兄貴、三文芝居はやめようぜ。兄貴が呼んだんだろ。
呼ぶ？誰よ？どこから？
兄さん、はっきりさせましょう。あれは誰？まさか
本当に肖像画のベアトリーチェだと言うんじゃないでしょうね。
私にはお前たちが何を言っているのかさっぱりだ。ゴード、これは本当に冗談ではないのだな。
私は源氏さんからそのように指示を受けただけでして、
源氏を呼びなさい、今すぐ。
Natsuki yelled, Kota shot out into the hallway. The sound of the door being thrown open at that time triggered a sudden uproar around the dinner table.
じゃあ兄貴も知らないってんだな。呼んだのは誰だ？親父ってことか。私には何のことかわからんね。お前たちは私が裏で糸を引いていると信じているようだが、それ
クラス兄さん、わしらはもう腹の探り合いをすべき段階にないで。もし兄さんも知らない怪人物だっちゅうんなら、これはとんでもない話になるんや。
秀吉さん、言葉を少し慎みませんか？主人は親族会議に不要な人間を招いたりはしません。
まったくだ。お前たちは何を言っているのか。肖像画の魔女が額縁を抜け出して現れたとでも言うのかね。実際にその魔女様に会ったという人間がいるわけでもなかろう。
私、会ったわ。
Even Rudolph nodded at Rose's proclamation.
マリアもあった。クラウスおじさん信じて、ママを信じて。
The brief tension was broken and Maria started to make a ruckus. The room was by now chaotic. And knowing this group chaotic evil.
つまりなんだ？じい様に黄金を授けた魔女様が今年の親族会議にはスペシャルゲストとして登場ってわけかよ。
しかし本当にローザおばさんの見間違いってことじゃねえの？
マリアもあった。
ローザおばさん、間違いなくなんですか？
ええ、私とマリアは会って話もしてる。私は会ったの。あれは間違いなく魔女だった。信じて。私の見間違いとか錯覚とかそんなのじゃ断じてない。あれは
The instant before the typhoon visited, Rose had definitely met with the witch in the Rose Garden. That scene had been so hard to accept as reality. The more she spoke of it like this, the less she understood what it was she had met. Ironically, because she had lost her composure when she said it, she had definitely met the witch. The more desperate she became, the more vague the witch's existence seemed. So it was a single composed sentence that affirmed her existence for certain.
私もあったわ。挨拶とはとても言えないけれど、一応言葉も交わしてる。ローザさんの見間違いとかじゃ断じてないわ。
キリエさん、それマジかよ。
ええ。でも彼女は私に名乗らなかった。だから彼女がベアトリーチェであると断定はできない。でも、主観的で恐縮なんだけど、私は玄関ホールで彼女に会ったから、肖像画と顔を見比べることができた。私は第一印象で、彼女こそがこの肖像画の主に違いないって思う。あくまでも主観よ。
そんなことはありえません。第一、その女はどこからやってきたというのですか？今日の船は皆さんの送迎のための便が往復しただけです。その船に乗っていたのですか？
それを言われると弱いね。確かにそんなご婦人と一緒に下船した記憶はない。
あら、そう？私たちの乗ってきた船以外に船はないってどうしてできないわ？来なかったは証明できない。
道理だな。来たは証明できる。来たのを見たやつが見たと言えばいい。しかし、来ないは証明できないぜ。全員が来ない、見てないと言ったところで、全員が見てないところでこっそり来たことを否定はできない。つまり、悪魔の証明ってやつだ。
It's easy to prove that a devil exists. All you have to do is meet a devil. It's impossible to prove that the devil doesn't exist. Just because no one has ever met a devil doesn't mean you can deny the possibility that they're hiding away somewhere that humans cannot go. You can't deny the existence of aliens for this exactly the same reason. Until humanity searches the whole of space and can show perfectly that aliens don't exist, you can't be sure that they don't. It's definitely impossible for us to ever check the entirety of space for the existence of aliens. Therefore, there may be a number of ways to prove aliens do exist. It's impossible to show proof that denies their existence.
となれば、僕たちが乗ってきた船以外の船で来たかどうかなんて、議論しても無駄な問題ということになるね。僕たちと一緒の船にはいなかった。それだけが事実で、それ以外の方法で、とにかくこの島に訪れたことになる。
そうね。どうやって来たかなんて。議論の肝心なのは、現にこの屋敷に今いて、私たちと晩餐を共にする気がないという事実よ。
整理しよう。今この島には、後ろ宮家18人以外に、もう一人客がいる。そしてそいつは、兄貴も夏日姉さんも知らない客だってんだな。
知りません。何の話だかもわかります。
お前は少し黙っていなさい。頭痛に触る。妻の言う通りだ。私にはお前たちが何の話をしているのかさっきか。
じゃあ答えは一つしかない。お父様が呼んだのよ。今日の親族会議のために。
親族会議に？だから何のために？
そんなの知らないわよ。兄さんが知ってたらそれを問い詰めようって思ってたのよ。
ええわ、予算か。クラース兄さんは知らんと言うとる。つまり話はこうや。お父さんが肖像画の魔女にそっくりの客人をこっそり招いた。それにローザさんが出会い、マリアちゃんが出会い、そしてキリエさんもあった。今はそこまでや。わしらに言いたいことがあるんならとっとと姿を現せばええ。挨拶もなしに引きこもってるっちゅうんはどないなわけなんや。
Well, she does have a way to greet you.
親族会議なんか花から関心のない親父が新しい愛人をこっそり呼びつけたってわけ。理想の魔女様のおべべを着せてよ。そう決着するには今日という日は意味を持ちすぎてるぜ。
理由は一つしかない。親族会議に加わるためよ。お父様の遺産について何かの権利を主張する気でいるのよ。バカバカしい。当主様に愛人などと汚らわしいものなどおりません。
お前は黙っていると言っている。私はこの屋敷でずっと親父殿と過ごしているが、最大限理解を示したとして、何十年も昔の愛人との間に隠し子がいたとして、それを親父殿が探し出し、今日という日に呼びつけたと、こう言いたいのかね。
あなた、お父様にそんなものがいるわけがありません。尊い後宮の血が愛人ごときに。先ほどから数人が見たと自称しているに過ぎません。幻想妄想白チュームに決まっています。あるいはこれも夫を陥れるための皆さんの何らかの芝居なのですか？何の芝居だってのよ。芝居だって言うならそっちでしょうが。
よせよ姉貴。ちょいと暴力的な言い方だが、夏日さんの言う通りではある。キリエは姿を見たが、姉貴もだ。だがローザは見た。しかしってことは、いるってことになる。いるを証明している連中が存在する以上、いるで直ちに決着。悪魔の証明の逆パターンってわけだな。それに、俺も会いたいんだよ。そして、一体当家に何の御用かと直接問いただしたい。
それについては私も同感だ。六軒島へ何の御用かぜひお尋ねしたいものだ。
白々しいこと言わないで。狙いは一つよ。お父様の遺産を狙ってるのよ。相続問題に明るい弁護士に今後の作戦を練らせるべきよ。お母様と同格の権利を愛人が主張した場合、私たちの取り分はかっきり半分さらわれることになる。
ちょっとみんな待って。源氏さんがもうじき来るわ。彼は何でも知ってる。きっと私たちの疑問に答えてくれるわ。それまでそういう話はなしにしましょう。さあ子供たち、悪いけれど大人はちょっと込み入った話をしないといけないの。ゲストハウスへ戻っていなさい。
Rosie yelled at the children, slightly emotionally. Children didn't understand why they were suddenly being yelled at now, but Eva and the rest came to the same realization as Rose after a delay. They were talking so grandly about the filthy topic of the inheritance in front of the children. There's no way that they'd want their children to remain here, so they all immediately agreed with Rosa's plan.
そうやな。ローザさんの言う通りや。ジョージ、いとこみんなでゲストハウスに戻ってるんや。いとこ同士仲良く遊ぶんやで。
Maybe the kids ate it while they were all yelling.
いとこみんなを連れて今すぐ出ていくの。
ちょっと待ってよ母さん。僕たちはまだ食事も終え
Oh,
ていな
there
い。
you go. No, they haven't finished eating.
デザートもまだ来てない。
デザートはゴーダさんにゲストハウスに運ばせます。だから出て行きなさい。ジェシカ、ここから先は大人の話し合いです。行きなさい。
わかったよ。まだ食いかけだってのによ。
ってことは俺だけ例外ってことはないよな。
理解してくれてありがとうバトラ君。でもあなたラッキーよ。
どうして？
私も出て行けるなら出て行きたいもん。
違いねえぜ。大人は大人で遺産をめぐって楽しい一家団らんをお楽しみくださいってんだ。
私も席を外しましょう。どうやら今夜は私の出番はなさそうだ。
Andrew softly rose from his seat. He'd been calmly watching the whole discussion from his seat at the farthest corner of the table without pointlessly interrupting. His reaction was very adult, like a calm old gentleman. As if he were a calm old gentleman. When Nanjo rose from his seat, it urged the other people who were supposed to leave. The children noisily rose from their seats. Commotion was heard in the hallway as the servants returned.
遅くなって申し訳ございません。源氏をお呼びいたしました。
お屋敷の中の戸締まりの確認に行っておりましたもので申し訳ございません。
さあ子供たちはゲストハウスへ。ゴーダさん、申し訳ないのだけれど子供たちの分のデザートをゲストハウスへ運んでくれるかし
ら。は、よろしいのですか。
It seemed that Go did not appreciate that the dinner he'd worked so hard on was going to be interrupted like this. He sent Natsuhi a look as though asking her whether that was really all right.
ローザさんの言う通りにするように。それから私たちにデザートの配膳は不要です。呼び出しがあるまで食堂には近づかないように。これは他の使用人にも伝えること。いいですね。
はい、かしこまりました。
さあさあ皆さん参りましょうかな。マリアさんもこれ以上お母さんを困らせてはいけません。
I wonder if Maria's letter is an exact copy of the one Rosa has, so that they can read it simultaneously.
マリアちゃん、僕たちにゲストハウスでベアトリーチェの話を聞かせてくれない？ぜひ魔女の話を聞きたいんだね。
ジョージ兄さんは本当にうめえぜ。感動するぜ。
本当に子持ちじゃねえのかよ。手慣れすぎだぜ。
Maria's mood was completely back to normal at George's words, and she even took the initiative in hurrying everyone to go to the guest house. It looked like Goda didn't like being kicked out himself, but he was unable to disobey Natsuki and left the room with Battler and the rest closing the door.
ご用は何でしょうか、みんな。
あるわ。たっぷりと。それもみんな。誰から質問するかくじ引きが欲しいくらいよ。
だが誰が一番のくじを引こうとも違いねえな。源氏さん、正直に答えてくれ。今貴賓室にいるベアトリーチェってのは何者なんだ？
And that seems as good a place as any to call it for tonight.